How many people in here think that it was like morally acceptable to whack the CEO, dude? Last point. Last point. Because you keep bringing up this report, and then you can do this, okay? You keep bringing up this report. What did the report even suggest?
Do better.
Who?
The people that are implementing the system. So United Healthcare, CVS,
okay.
And I there's one
So,
other.
no, you're wrong.
You can't just go out and kill people!
There are probably times when vigilantism is not only understood, but maybe even like morally acceptable as a way to further some goal with a system that's clearly broken. But most of our moral arguments are going to take place within the framework of a system that we believe is functioning to some extent. So that's why we have to make the argument for whether the system is functioning or not. Vigilantism is a great thing in tribal societies where there's no court. Vigilantism is a horrible thing in societies where you do have court.
Luigi allegedly shot Brian Thompson, the CEO of United Healthcare, in the back until he was dead. Many have called him a hero for this action. Some say they celebrate the action's merits, but do not condone the method. Still others are neutrally calling it the aggregate situation understandable. But from a societal perspective, is the killing of a healthcare CEO ultimately an act of defense? Or is Mangione, as the state suggests, a terrorist and cold-blooded murderer who should not be celebrated nor lionized, but condemned in the strongest possible manner? When is vigilantism justified? That's what we're going to be talking about tonight, and we got some great guests to do it. We're going to give each of these wonderful people short introductions, and then we'll get into it. The soy pill, start us off. What is your take? What do you got?
Yeah. Hey, it's me, the soy pill. I make video essays about politics, and I'll be arguing that Luigi is a hero to people worldwide for justifiable reasons. I hope we don't get too bogged down in the definitions of terrorist and hero since they're subjective. We could all agree that Saddam Hussein, Amelia Earhart, or Osama bin Laden have committed horrible acts of terrorism, and yet they're seen as heroes to many as well. I don't expect to get my opponents to say that murder is good or to condone Luigi as a hero, but my goals in this conversation are to establish that, number one, the practices of insurance companies in denying and delaying healthcare for profit are reprehensible and tantamount to robbery or even murder. Number two, most of these practices, despite being absolutely monstrous, are within the company's legal rights, and when they aren't, they're rarely ever punished to a significant degree. Number three, Brian Thompson was aware, complicit, and encouraging of these policies. Number four, many of the people suffering or dying due to these policies have no way to see justice, and Luigi provided them a voice that they've lacked for years. And finally, number five, to approach this in good faith, if my opponents can show me that these suffering people have better short-term options for justice and aid, I will concede that their lionization of Luigi is misplaced and ignorant at best, and at worst, detrimental to society.
Okay, thanks for being here. Looking forward to it. Ash. Rube, what do you got?
Hey, Ash, Gelatinous Rube, whatever you want to call me. So I would prefer Americans not kill each other over healthcare, but it's difficult to encourage a ceasefire without some means of reprisal or some kind of leverage to encourage them to stop killing us over healthcare. So if healthcare CEOs don't want to be killed, I think that Luigi has, through a bad action, given us some leverage to encourage the members of the healthcare cartel to defect a little bit. Stop pushing for actions or laws like the Affordable Care Act, the 80-20 rule that encourages them to stop negotiating on our behalf and instead delay, deny, defend further and further so their investments can continue to garner more profit and they can make up any kind of excess cash that's illegal by just issuing rebates to us, while several policyholders, especially people with more expensive claims, are left out in the cold. So I think that this is an unfortunate event that has given us a lot of leverage on the side of policyholders.
Okay. We'll get into it as we go. Eucharist, what do you got?
Yeah, I'll try to keep it short as there's a lot already said. I think one of the cool things about living together in political communities is the creation of opportunities to live together in peace, the reliable, sort of predictable ability to resolve conflict through means other than violence. Violence in a working political community is a last resort kind of mechanism, not a first impulse tool. And because of that, any use of violence typically needs to be justified. A reason for its use has to be defended. And so if you're going to defend any particular instance of violence, you want to make sure also that your principles generalize and don't lead to any funny consequences that you aren't willing to deal with. So my basic claim, I think, today is going to be political violence may be justified in certain circumstances, and this is not one of those. And I want to see the proponents make a very strong positive case. But to avoid the sort of debate, bro, ooh, I don't have the burden because you guys are on the positive side, my negative case is basically centered around three things that I think we'll disagree on. I think we're going to disagree on whether the action was necessary, effective, or justified. And I disagree on all those. I think it's unnecessary, ineffective, and unjustified. And so importantly, I think like me saying that this is a bad thing that should not have happened, it does not actually require me to think that the CEO was a great guy or that the company was perfectly ethical. We can argue about the particulars of that, but I think it's going to be more important to say, even if it's a bad company, even if the CEO was unethical, does that rise to the level of justifying the action that was taken? And I'm going to suggest no. And also that it, even if you don't even care about questions of justice, that it's not actually going to be effective at accomplishing the political ends you want if the ends you want are some sort of healthcare reform. So,
well, thank you for being here. We'll get into it as we go. Buckaroo, what do you got?
Hello. I think Luigi is a man whose face is being used as a meme to express a fundamental human experience that that is regardless of class, creed, language, race. You know, healthcare by most developed nations is considered a human right. It's something that insurance companies use as another tool to make profit. We see racial, economic, and educational disparities reinforced by the denial ratings of these companies, only further souring the relationship between an already disenfranchised claimant and their insurance provider. We see the American opinion of health insurance reaching the lowest it has within the past 2 decades. And ultimately, many agencies utilize a strategy I have expressed using a chart I borrowed from the soy pill here tonight. Okay. If you can see, we've got f*** around and we've got find out. Emphasis being on the f***ing around, perhaps not enough of the finding out, the methods of which I believe to be a direct result of the seeming violence, quote unquote, that they commit against the American people.
Okay, we'll get into it as we go. Last but certainly not least, Destiny, what are your thoughts here?
Yeah, I think that the positive argument obviously needs to...
We cannot hear
Are
you.
you muted?
Sorry, I was just talking really quietly, actually. I think that the positive argument has to be provided for, obviously, because I think that the killing fails. I think basically in every aspect. Obviously, it fails legally. Somebody earlier here literally gave the definition for terrorism, which is that this murder gives leverage for a political change, which was literally why New York State decided to use the terrorism subcharge to get it to first-degree murder, and that's the definition of it, is to try to affect some political outcome. It fails personally, like the person was not personally impacted by any of the healthcare industry in a negative way, even though people tried to say he was initially. At first, it was that his poor grandma died, and then it was that he had a bad experience, and now it comes out he's just a rich kid who had surgery, and his experiences had nothing to do with negative health insurance companies or anything like that. It fails ethically. I don't think that you can say just because this guy is the CEO of a company who's engaged in a business that you don't like, we should be able to kill anybody in management as a result of that. I think that's a little bit absurd. We can think of should I be allowed to kill the CEO or kill executives who work at like gun manufacturing companies or car companies or what? It's just, especially in one of the most tightly regulated industries in the entire United States. That's, I think, an absurd claim. And then I think it fails most importantly, consequentially. There are really good conversations that we could be having about improving healthcare in the United States. Almost none of those conversations are solely centered around health insurance industries. There's a whole bunch of expensive things in U.S. healthcare, between hospitals, between doctors, between private practice, between insurance, between pharmaceutical companies. Like, there are so many different things that are expensive in the United States. To saddle all of this, at the feet of health insurance companies, I think is incredibly naive. And I think that this killing is going to result in absolutely nothing changing, because none of the conversations about any of the industry now are productive. It's just idolizing this random loser who is mentally insane and decided to kill a healthcare exec for whatever reason.
Okay. Well, I guess let's start there. Terrorist charge that the New York State's bringing on to the Luigi case. Who here thinks that that's an appropriate thing, that that's a good thing that they're doing this? Raise your hand.
Probably.
So everyone...
I gave the reasoning earlier.
Charging him with terrorism?
It's accurate at the very least. I said earlier, he's providing us leverage to hopefully engender some kind of ceasefire between healthcare companies and other aspects of the healthcare industry. Hospitals are involved in this as well. Hopefully to reconsider some of their policies and say, maybe we shouldn't do this. So if that's the definition of terrorism, then why would it be inappropriate to charge him?
If you had to rate your confidence on how likely you think it is that any hospital or insurance company or healthcare system will change its policies as a result of this. What's your confidence on that? Like, how likely do you think this actually
off of one
is?
guy?
Yeah.
Just one? Not very confident.
Okay. Yeah. So I like if the likely or if the possibility of change is part of the justification for this act, I just don't I don't see the actual line here. Like,
Well, his line,
does
just to
that
be clear,
even
he's
matter?
advocating for more of it happening, is what he's saying.
well,
but-
sure. Yeah. So
I think it's a
would.
possibility.
Eucharist, though, would you then be okay with it if it completely 100% changed the conversation? Like this?
No, but I
got
think
done?
I think a lot of the people who are defending it are thinking that it will be effective, and I want them to grapple with the fact that it's not. I want them to realize that even if you think this is justified because it's effective, and I don't think it would be even if it was, that this is probably not going to be effective. In fact, I think this will probably have a backlash effect that will probably entrench some of these problems y'all are complaining about.
Well, what metric would you have to see that this was an effective policy? Would the healthcare system need to change significantly? Would one company need to change their policies? Would we need single payer? Like, what would convince you that this itself was the driving force? Because it's a little soon to say. It hasn't even been a month. So this could completely change something by the next midterm. It could completely change the conversation 4 years from now. Like, who knows? But
nobody even remembers the Burnell dude that set himself on fire for Gaza. Why would we expect that we're going to remember this like months from now?
Well, I'm actually glad you brought that up because I thought it was actually the difference between these two things is one is this guy could have gone and burned himself, self-immolated in front of the United Healthcare building. And yeah, you're right. We probably would have forgotten about him. But because this was so egregious and blatant, everyone is talking about this. Like, this has completely changed the conversation. None of us would be here today if he hadn't done that. I actually have a stat for you specifically, Destiny. If you had to guess, last year before the shooting, you made 305 videos on YouTube. How many of them discussed healthcare specifically?
2 maybe, I don't know, probably not many.
Yeah, that's actually, conservatively 2. And that's if you're talking about like, Eastern medicine, maybe one is like anti-vax, whereas now at least 2 since the shooting has happened. I know this conversation will probably be uploaded. You had your debate with Vegan Gains. So, that's an 11,000% increase in healthcare videos, and you have a very wide audience. That's really
but how many
changing
other
the
people are
conversation.
having like productive conversations about healthcare?
I don't know. You can like turn on every single news station. They're all talking about this.
That productive.
Can
No,
I-
they're just talking about Luigi, the fact that he shot somebody. But I don't even think we're talking about it much anymore. We've kind of moved on. We're in the next part of the news cycle. We're waiting for Trump to come into office. Like,
I have no way to check this or prove this, but a similar question back at you three. How many of you before this news cycle could have confidently named Brian Thompson as the CEO of this company? Did you know him by name or sight or face? Okay. Right. So one of the issues I've had with this whole like sort of grave dancing in the aftermath of the Luigi incident is like I could maybe be perfectly okay with seeing people do the kind of grave dancing where I've seen some of these anecdotes. Specifically, people are like, yeah, I was insured by United and they denied my claim for this. Screw that guy in particular. I'm really pissed about it. I've been following, the lawsuit against him for his insider trading and all of this, and I hated him and his guts, and I'm glad this happened. Those people, fine, whatever. But most people had no idea who this guy was, had no idea what was going on in this company, probably couldn't have told you anything about any of these stats beforehand. Maybe you're right, Soypill, that like that's a good thing now that we're talking about it. But I do think that there's something really weird about just being like, yes, this guy in particular was so evil and so bad that I think a random person, rich guy who was not affected by his actions, gunning him down in the street is justified and thumbs up and okay. And I'm going to celebrate it, even though 2 weeks ago I couldn't have told you anything about him.
I
Isn't there a pretty
personally
obvious
do
reason for
agree.
that, though?
Just one at a time. Let's go to Buckaroo and then let's go to...
I do agree there is a massive, like a lot of people didn't really know who he was, but I think that is just relaying a serious issue within health insurance agencies as a whole and with healthcare, with how healthcare is provided to an individual patient or in this case claimant. I think the distance that is put between the individual patient and the care that they're provided actively perpetuates this this dehumanization that goes both ways. We complain a lot about how we are seen as numbers on a chart, and so is Brian Thompson in this case. So I actually think your argument goes to it goes to express a greater issue that I think is perpetuated by insurance companies as a whole.
Does
And
this
I
mean
do
that
think
you're-
Brian Thompson.
would this mean that you're like super against single payer then, since probably the government sees you as a number more than any other, like that would be the largest organization in the entire country that could...
I personally prefer something more like a 2-tier system at least, but I also looking at like Nordic models, for example, you see a lot of more localized government control over the individual like healthcare being provided, and then the greater government is just helping facilitate that.
Wait, in Sweden and Norway, they don't have federal level payment?
They do, but they offer a lot of allowance to the individual counties as to the way they facilitate it.
Okay. I still don't see how like having like a county level thing is like at the end of the day, I feel like the only thing that matters is you interfacing personally with your doctor, not knowing where the guy who authorizes your treatments lives.
Well, the difference is in one of these countries, the non-profit healthcare system is incentivized to get the best care for the people and not to make money. And the CEO is part of those decisions that go down and say, hey, let's see how we can make more money. How can we deny claims? How can we make the most profit for our company?
Well, how do they make money in the United States?
It depends. They have like 2/3 of their investments are in bonds. If they have a loss adjusted ratio that's lower than 100%, then they're paying out less than they're getting in. But it depends.
Well, so that
Usually
2/3,
it's
I don't know
investment.
where that. So the vast majority of the money comes from premiums that they're paid, right? And they have to pay out at least 80% of that in healthcare costs.
Mm-hmm.
So how are they making money? Like, couldn't you argue that the U.S. healthcare system is incentivized to make money by charging people for things? So, like going to the hospital and delivering levels of care that you know are going to be effective, or like would people buy a drug if they knew that it wouldn't work, or would people go to the hospital if they knew that it wouldn't work? Or
I'm not sure I'm following. Could you?
You're saying that they're incentivized to profit. Well, how does a company make profit? By selling a good or service. We think that healthcare is probably important, so we consume that good or service. So
By selling a good or service or denying people claims. So saying, I mean, you can look at any of these examples. I'll just bring up a bunch. But do you know what a MIST is? Like a minor impact soft tissue?
no.
So there's a specific strategy for missed claims where they say, look, the payouts for these are incredibly minor, and they're also very hard to prove because you don't get x-rays or specific medical diagnoses that are super, super obvious. So it's more profitable to us to just say no to all of these and hope that the vast majority of the people don't fight it. The ones that do fight it realize that the litigation is going to cost more than the payout ever would be, and then they make more money off that and are not providing the promised care to the people that they're supposed to.
Wait, so you're telling me there are health insurers where it explicitly says that they cover things like these minor impact soft tissue injuries, and then but they actually don't cover any of them? Can you give me an example of a company that does that I can look up?
Yeah, look up Allstate.
Wait, for health insurance or is this for car insurance?
No, this is for car insurance.
Okay, we're not talking about car insurance, we're talking about health insurance. I think it's a different type of thing, right?
Okay, so then we could look at the recent report that came out from the permanent subcommittee on investigations, where this is, you've talked about this on stream, the AI denials of people getting post-acute healthcare. This post-acute healthcare, for those of you who don't know, means when you get a procedure, let's say some sort of surgery, or you need something and you need that care afterwards, they have this system that determines whether or not you need it. That system might be based on a couple of factors. It ranks all these points, and if you're over a certain threshold, they just deny you that care. People who are denied care either have to pay out of pocket, go through litigation, or forgo that care entirely. And the consequences of forgoing that care are either your condition worsens, it becomes permanent, or you die. So what about that? That's healthcare. That's literally
so I don't know
from
where
United Health.
So I don't know real quick, that 90% number, the only place I've ever been able to find that before, that wasn't from any House subcommittee or whatever. That was from a lawsuit.
Okay, let's say it's 1%. It doesn't matter. The point is that people are dying because of this.
The point is do we think that every single denial is bad? It should.
No, there are tons of denials that are fine. Fraud is the second biggest white collar crime of all time. People like to commit insurance fraud, and we should have checks for that. But that doesn't mean that most of these denials are okay. And if you look at the quotes,
hold on, just real quick. This is to you, Soy, and to your side. Wouldn't it matter how much of this is happening? We can recognize in any system there's going to be failures, there's going to be fraud, as you said, there's going to be bad actors. Like, how many people have to have died for what Luigi did to be justified?
I'd say he's a hero to whoever of the people who had family or friends die, regardless if that's one person, 1,000 people, 40,000 people, whatever the number is. Obviously, there's probably a more reasonable threshold. It's not one, it's probably hundreds, if not thousands. The point is that these systems being used are based on whistleblower testimony, not adequate to what adjusters would normally do to give people the proper payouts.
What if you
I will also note, we do. Sorry, thank you. I will also note we do see that there are nearly 17% of in-network claims that are denied, at least in 2021. And 77% of all of those were just listed as other reasons. There wasn't even a clear outline as to why they were being denied, as to whether it had to do with their specific policy or if they filled out the forms wrong, which is part of the denial rating as well.
Wait, real quick on that. If somebody filled out a form wrong, wouldn't that be a good reason to deny somebody?
I believe that if a company is promoting themselves as offering some concept of safety to their customers, I think that is something that they should be held to, whether or not there is like one line in a policy, buried in pages upon pages that maybe exempts them from a small amount of coverage.
Yeah, just to piggyback on that, some of these, like, you filled this out wrong, are tantamount to the voter, tests that they used to have for black people in the, 1800s.
I'm sorry, I'm going to need an example of that where you're filling out a convoluted test and then that is the incorrect form. And that's how they're denying a thing.
It is also the amount of paperwork for any of these cases, and they're specific on policy records. I believe McKinsey documents have promoted this. Or if you don't want to go back to auto insurance, we can just talk about the fact that these companies do share practices. It's like one of the only antitrust laws they can get around is to make the documentation more complicated and more difficult to fill out, and to delay those claims as long as possible for whatever reason you can. So they already delay them when they know they're justified in paying them out for if someone had an alibi, if they thought they might have committed arson fraud, if someone had some sort of, a health issue where they produced all of the medical documents necessary to show that they actually do have that condition and they do need that care. Already at that point, they are denying those claims just to prolong and fight and make that litigation cost those people more, to take that money and to invest that float for extra interest in the long term.
They don't make money.
So
just real quick, they don't make money on these filings are public. Where they make the money, they don't make a lot of money on investments. That's just not the case. There's because the money that comes in and out of these companies is moving so quickly. They don't invest a ton of this money and make a ton of profit this way.
But that is how they get rid of that's how they get around the fact that their ratio of payouts to claims can be over 100%. That's the only way they can make profit otherwise.
Okay, so there's
that's not true.
I will also note the NICA or NAIC, the National.
No, finish your point, then you, Chris. I'm just trying to. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Sorry. The National Association of Insurance Commissioners. Sorry, I have my notes down here. That's why I'm reading. They actually have a model of it's Model Unfair Claims Settlement Practices Act, and under it actually lists a bunch of different unfair practices that are utilized by insurance agencies, and that it includes not attempting in good faith to effectuate prompt, fair, and equitable settlement of claims submitted in which liability has become reasonably clear. And this is one of, I believe, 15 different unfair practices that are utilized by insurance companies that actively go against this.
And Becker, I will add that they will only punish you if they can establish that's a commonplace business practice. If you do it once or twice, they will not punish you for that.
Eucharist, go ahead.
Yeah, there's multiple levels here that are difficult, because one of the things we're dealing with is when we look up how often do insurance companies deny these claims. The numbers for that are not always good or useful.
They're not available, actually.
Exactly, right. So when we get numbers, they're from publicly available databases or reporting and things like this that don't come directly from the company, right? So that's maybe a problem. But they're also
there, Professor, because it's not
you gotta let you.
Okay, I'll write it down. Sorry, go ahead.
They're also only tangentially useful sometimes, because some of those numbers include things like denial for pre-authorization, failure to file pre-authorization requests, and those typically get hashed out between insurer and hospital, not at the patient level. So usually, if you get something in the mail that says your claim was denied because there was no pre-authorization request, you will sometimes see something at the bottom that says something like patient is not liable for blah blah blah, because that's something that gets hashed out. The hospital should have asked the insurance before they did it. They didn't, and then they hash it out, right? So that gets included in that bucket of denials. And so what we're just concerned about is percentage of denied claims and how many of those are claims that should have been approved. What we're saying is we're looking for the percentage of denied claims that are actually fraudulent, which is we are contracted to cover this. You have shown that this should be covered, and we're not going to pay it anyway. And so that's what we're looking for within that big number, and it's hard to find. And because, as you said, the numbers are not available. That is another issue, right? Because Go ahead. Yeah, you can go on.
Well, I want to jump in on that. It's like the reason the numbers are not available is because these insurance companies lobby to make sure that they do not have to publish them.
Sure.
The only
You
place
know
they
who
have
else
to give
is
them
lobbying
is,
to make sure they don't have to publish them, though, is labor unions. There's an article I'll send you guys later if you want. ProPublica has done a series of essays on this.
But the point is that the NAIC is the only people that get this. They report it to them privately. They're not even a governmental institution. You can get accounts from the people who work at this place, and they say that like you said, the data is overlapping. It's ambiguous. They don't all use the same reporting standards. And finally, there are companies that do transparently release this data. One actually that I know of called Chubb, and it's the most transparent, and it's lets the best consumer to ensure a relationship. It costs a little more, but is completely possible for all of these people to release all of their data.
Yeah, all of this is hold on, just real quick. All of this is nice, good, interesting information. It's connected to the topic at hand, but the topic at hand is let's just cede all of that ground, right? The health insurance companies are bad. They do bad things.
Well, no, you can't cede the ground because this is literally where the conversation is and where it needs to happen. Because if it is the case, because the problem is that on one end, you've got this caricaturized version of health insurers who are just like, the only way we can make money is by denying everybody all their claims all the time. And we do it maliciously and evilly and we whatever. Like that's on one end. And then on the other end, it's like, okay, well, you've got businesses that function in like the most heavily regulated environment, probably of all U.S. businesses, probably in all industry in the United States. And denials happen. Like even Medicare and Medicaid have double-digit denial rates. And like this is just part of operating in this industry. So like if we're all, I think, because I imagine even Eucharist, I imagine you would agree that if it was the case that health insurance companies were just arbitrarily, maliciously, and evilly denying people claims for literally no reason, but just to watch people die and make more money, in that case, if a guy gets whacked or whatever, I don't know, maybe.
Well, hold on, who's claiming that they're doing it to watch
I would
them
want to
die?
argue even in that case that they're like, you should be prosecuting for the fraud that's happening, right? Which was exactly what was happening with the lawsuit against Brian and other people for insider trading, right? That to the extent that UHC is actually committing fraud on the level you guys are alleging, there are legal avenues
fraud
that you
against
can
other
pursue.
rich people. That's like if you look at any CEO that's ever been prosecuted for any of these things, at least what I could find, 9/10 of like every single article is all, oh, you were defrauding investors. And the one person who ever actually went to jail, I don't have it right in front of me. Let's see right here. Yeah, Kothari and McMenamin, who just like were so egregiously lying about their claims, making up numbers completely, that it was prosecuted. Everything else is the status quo, and that's kind of the point, is that you can deny all these claims. You can implement these computer systems that group people and segment them into these groups that don't make sense on an individual one-to-one basis, and it's not illegal. It's not considered immoral. I mean, we have two people right now arguing that it's totally okay. In the meantime, these people are just dying. And I'm not saying, Destiny,
This doesn't
you
happen.
mentioned,
You're lying when you say, hold on, what percentage of insurance denials are just like denying people necessary care and then they die? If you had to guess, like, what do you feel like that is?
don't know. They don't release the numbers.
Guess, but you have a strong enough feeling you think a CEO should die over it. So tell me what you think in your head. Like, what's your intuition? Like, what do you think it's around?
Let me be clear. I don't actually necessarily even support the murder. I don't know if I want to live in a world where the
sure,
way
but I
that
still want to know intuitively. What do you think is like the amount of arbitrary bullshit denials, and then people are like dying or having severely horrible adverse outcomes for denials that are
what
just
number would I have to say for you to change your mind?
I mean, I think any number is not necessarily good, and I think we should probably seek to reform the industry. But like in my mind, this number is probably like, I would say easily less than 10%, probably less than 5% in terms of like probably less than 1%. But if it feels like in your guys' mind,
where's that coming from? Because I have no idea. I'm not going to say
the fact that it's like the most heavily regulated industry in the United States.
What do you think that means when you say it's the most heavily regulated?
As in, there's a ton of like paperwork. There's a ton of information that's required to be like, for instance, somebody said earlier that claims are rejected for no reason. That's not even possible. Under the ACA, you literally have to provide a reason for rejecting a claim. It's a requirement of the ACA.
To be clear, the claim was all other reasons.
I don't think you can give that. I don't think
you can reject. You can reject and delay.
I don't think you can just reject for no reason, for all reasons. That doesn't make any sense.
I'm not saying for no reason. I'm saying for all other reasons. I think it's just, at least in the data that was being sourced.
Hold on. Other than fraud, just maybe this
it was used.
Buckaroo. Other than fraud, what do you think would be a legitimate reason for a health insurance company to deny a claim? What would give me an example of what you would think would be a legitimate, non-fraudulent reason where the healthcare insurance provider can and should say, we're not covering that?
I think if somebody's trying to jump the gun on treatment options, for example, they want to skip over like all of the preventative options and go straight to the most extreme option that also happens to be more expensive because it's utilizing more expensive technology, I would say that's worth denying, because I think people should be trying to take an exhaustive approach, or at least like attempting some sort of approach to preventative care before seeking out the most expensive options. I think a lot of elective surgeries, whether or not I agree with all the classifications of elective surgeries, I think there are a lot of elective surgeries that are just fine to be denied because, I don't think everybody needs to have a nose job. Not everybody needs to have, elective surgeries. I mean, I could go down a list of them.
Wait,
but
just as a real quick audience thing. So an elective surgery is just something that's not life-threatening. It's not always a cosmetic surgery. So, for instance, if you have like a bone that's like broken or didn't heal right, or it's kind of like fucked, but it's not like threatening your life, you can schedule that surgery in advance. That's not like a cosmetic surgery, but that could be like an elective surgery, assuming it's not like a life-threatening.
Well, this is a part of why I'm talking about surgeries that are talking about options that are not taking an exhaustive effort to their like preventative care and to appropriate care at first, because perhaps what they actually need is a cast first, but they're refusing a cast and they want to have the surgery instead. I think there are a lot of different circumstances in which there are surgeries that may or may not be covered for good reason. Eucharist?
Can I ask,
look like you have a thought.
Yeah, I do. I guess my question for you all, related to what Destiny said, is like, well, I imagine if we all agree, if there is this amount of thing happening, well, probably good that this guy got captured or whatever. I guess I'm wondering what the threshold is for you guys. Like, what level of harm or fraud you think justifies these things? And so, this is for all of you, but for Soy Pill specifically, I did watch your video on this, and you had the section where you bring up Hannah Arendt's Eichmann in Jerusalem. Very interesting section. And one thing that I quoted, I'm hoping I'm quoting it correctly, you bring up this thing that she's talking about effectively, which is that there were thousands of office workers within the Third Reich who were completely removed from any death or killing and were just as responsible for making those deaths happen. And your summary basically is sometimes evil is just a pencil-pushing nerd. And I'm just wondering, first, what is the threshold of evil enough that we think somebody should be, hauled in front of a trial and executed or potentially extrajudicially executed on the street? And then who in the system of banal evil is eligible for extrajudicial assassination now, if I accept your premise that lots of evil is pencil-pushing nerds in this healthcare system that we all agree is very extensive, right? It's hospitals, it's insurers, it's the government, it's everybody. So which of these people can I just cap if I want to, right?
Okay,
do you guys know the names of other C-suite executives at United? Do you know who?
No, they took them all down, so we can't. But
do you want to like which of these people, right? Yeah.
Right. So first of all, I want to clarify. I don't necessarily want to live in a world where the only way to get change is to cap people in the back of the head. I still have some hope that there is a way to work within the system. I'm just saying that the people who do view this man as a hero do not feel as if they can live to see that change, or do not believe that change is possible. So just to get that out of the way, that's my position. Second of all, when you are in a position of power, whether or not you are on the internal committee that is deciding whether or not to use these systems that are arbitrarily denying people, and like I said, I think Destiny, you mentioned like, oh, they're these evil healthcare companies, they're wringing their hands. Like, I don't believe necessarily that they're viewing it that way as this like, oh yeah, how many people can we kill today? It's a matter of turning people into numbers and disassociating from the humanity of those people, right?
This is what every single system necessarily has to do, right? Why do you say that? Like, turning people into numbers. The government would have to do this as well. Every single,
no, it doesn't, because other insurance companies have the responsibility to give out the money that they promise their people, and they just do it, and they make less money, and it's not for profit, and that's how nonprofits work. Yeah,
but the government would have to run under a certain budget as well. They might not be paying out profits, but they're going to be given a budget by the government that they have to come in under, right?
Sure.
Yeah. Just to be clear, I have a different argument that's relying on the incentive structure on how these people are treated, not necessarily that they're being treated as numbers or.
Can I make my last point, Ash, and then let you join in? Because he asked me like, at what point can I kill someone? And if you look at the agents, the adjusters, and their incentives in the structure, there's cash for making the company perform well and have better profits incentives. They are specifically quotes. I could get a quote here. I don't have it off the top of my head, but essentially people are fired for not adhering to the system. So if the like Colossus system, that's one of the computer systems they use, says, hey, you should deny this person care. They review it and say, I actually don't think this deserves a denial. They could be fired for that. So I don't think those people are nearly as responsible. They're not the ones making the decisions. They're not the ones implementing these systems, and they're fully aware. Brian Thompson is someone who worked his way up through the company, saw the top to bottom structure, and then got to the point where he could make change. He could say, hey, I don't think these systems are good. I think we're denying too many people care. I think that we should be more responsible to the people that deserve payouts, and he didn't. So he is like definitely at least above the threshold. Again, I don't necessarily means he deserves to die, but I consider him much more responsible. Sorry,
just as a quick thing, when you say that people are being denied based on some system or some AI or whatever, what do you think it's using to deny those people? What do you think it's weighing there generally?
It's a ton of things. I mean, for example, again, if you keep jumping on this because it's car insurance, this is just the one I know off the top of my head.
Car insurance doesn't count because car insurance is not anywhere near as heavily regulated as medical insurance. It's a much different thing.
Okay, so then I don't know the specifics of any of the ones except the Colossus system, which I know is flags and it's based on car insurance. So what are the other ones, if you know?
Although it is
in terms
relating
of
to
scope
health
of it?
insurance, to be clear, it is still the insurance industry as it relates to the health of the individual claimant that is pursuing some sort of medical care
hold
or
on.
some sort of reimbursement for their medical care.
Buckaroo, do
So
you think that an auto insurance guy bears responsibility for someone gets in an accident, they get injured because of that accident? The auto insurance guys don't pay the repair bill for whatever reason.
Well, I'm still talking about how it relates to health insurance, to be clear. I'm not talking about the repair bill for the car. I'm talking about the health insurance, the insurance that relates to the health of the claimants that may or may not have been injured in the accident in the first place.
Yeah, and the car insurance has to pay out for auto injuries, so it's still part of their health. And if they delay or deny claims on, I don't know, whiplash, which is the minor impact surgical tissue or whatever it is, soft tissue, that can make your, like, if you don't get that repaired in the 3-month window, that can make your condition permanent or
So are they?
worsened.
Are they on the chopping block, or are they on the wanted posters?
I am actually glad you asked this because I did want to put in my 2 cents as well. I think almost anybody participating in the medical and insurance industry could bear maybe like 1 penny of claim.
What about the lawyers defending those?
But this is why I think there is like a fundamental issue with the insurance companies and with the system of healthcare that we have in the United States, and why I believe that more individualized care and more direct interactions between providers and
the lawyers
the people
for these
buying
insurance companies?
I'm sure everybody on this panel could
like I said,
agree that if
this is what I mean, though. I think everybody
Everyone stop, because I'm trying to get to some clear answers. So the auto insurance, they're on the hook. The lawyers for these insurance companies, they're on the hook. What about reporters and things who paint insurance companies in a positive light? Are they on the hook?
I mean, again, I don't even know if I agree with the statement "on the hook" because I think this is a system that is perpetuated by almost every single person who participates within it. I don't think there's one person that you could say, this is the one person that if he's gone, then everything's perfectly resolved, which is also why I presented my issue with the whole conversation in the first place as a result of the treatment of claimants of treatments of claimants. I think it's less just a conversation about justification, but more about cause and effect. If there are people who feel like they've been wronged at such an extreme level, I think they're going to have some sort of negative reaction. And after about 3 decades of the implementation of delay, deny, defend, as proposed by the McKinsey & Company, the consulting company that a lot of these insurance agencies specifically sought out, I think that is a huge part of what's perpetuated these issues now. And I think a great way to resolve it would be to reform the whole system.
Okay. Ash, you've been trying to get in. Sorry.
Just briefly, I'm sure that we could all agree that if somebody is engaged in fraud, then whatever the punishment we decide is appropriate for that person, it's going to be based on proximity to their responsibility for the fraud. United Health Group employs something like 440,000 people. I'm sure that we could agree that if somebody is closer than not or has more decision-making power within the company, Brian Thompson is, would you disagree that he's within the top 1,000 of those 440,000?
He's
it
certainly
depends.
more influential than the person.
Would it be unreasonable to say the top 100 or even maybe the top 20? Who would you kill if you were Luigi?
Wait. It depends on what you mean by like decision making process. So like like a manager or a chief executive officer might be making more broad level decisions in a company, but they might be further removed from like an individual making a fraudulent decision. Let's say you literally have a store called like Morals Are Us, and it's the most moral CEO ever, and then you've got like a frontline employee who like intentionally swaps medications for people at the pharmacy just to watch them die. We wouldn't say that the CEO is responsible for that individual's criminal act as contrary to the law and company policy, right?
And in the same
what
sense,
about
going back to the
promoting
Eichmann and Jerusalem situation, right? We just recently hauled another Nazi prison guard before a court who has managed to outlive his years, right? He was like a 17-year-old Nazi prison guard, right? We prosecuted people who were at the lowest rungs of this, just implementing what their superiors said. That's the point of the whole Eichmann comparison, right?
Well,
so
I
I don't know if I can
guy watched and maybe killed Jews versus
applying the algorithm, right? If the algorithm is so evil and it's defrauding people at this grand scale, the person who's on the phone saying, "Yeah, man, your claim was denied. I can't do anything about it. I checked the box and it gets spit out the output. What can I do about it, man?" Like, is that person any less complicit in the scheme you guys are developing? I'm not sure. Like,
well, yeah, because their livelihood is on the line in terms of changing it. Like, they will literally.
So was the Nazi
fired.
prison guard. Like, I don't see the
They were just following
and I
orders.
say a Nazi prison guard is just as responsible, and we'd out there.
To be clear, I don't have an argument based on the Nazi prison guard. I'm just going based off of modern.
I don't have
examples,
Nazis in
modern
any
law.
of my arguments. To be clear, at no point did I study Nazis for this.
Well, I'm
discussion.
implicating you in Soy Pill's argument. Okay, he put a video on the internet. You're on his side in this debate, and you get
Use
it all.
my graph.
Okay.
You got to do it.
No, I'm innocent. I swear.
No, I guess I still have not heard like a very convincing like here's why I can't kill a mid-level manager at UHC. Okay, wait, another question I have then on this same line, right?
Can I invoke a Nazi
personally
argument,
just
actually,
think you
Professor? Because you want to talk about Nazis. Do you know
Sure,
that,
go ahead and invoke the Nazi argument, and then I have a question I'll save.
Well,
Yes, please.
sorry to interrupt, but do you know the indie movie Schindler's List?
Yeah.
You know how Oscar Schindler probably couldn't overthrow the entire Nazis, but had plenty of options as the head of a company to save people, to defy them, to subvert them at every possible moment without actually dying, and he did that.
Sure. Yeah.
So do you think that Brian Thompson could have done that?
No.
No?
No.
Why not?
Because you can't even list a single way in which he could have. One, he's not even the person that's shot calling at the end of the day in terms of like what the company's doing, right? He would just be fired as CEO.
You don't think a CEO has any influence in the company? I'm
I'm
aware that there's
he
a
would just be
board
fired, right? What do you mean?
What? No, I'm just saying that a CEO has influence over what the company does. If he's promoting the AI system, I mean, you can tell me that he was just like a pretty face to promote that system. I don't know. I don't think so. I think he was
yeah, but hold on.
probably
When you
doing
say
it
AI
because he knows what that system does.
We're all young. None of us are 75 years old here. Okay, I don't think AI needs to be like the scary word that makes something automatically bad.
Okay, well, then say the computer system. They've been using them for 30 years, and they've been overly denying people. We're
overly denying in the industry. Overly denying.
We have
compared
quotes
to what?
from people in the industry that they are not fair to the standard of what a normal adjuster would say. These are from people in the industry are saying this. So if they
then
know
why not some
that
more of those quotes
always
things about car insurance? Again, this is all built on the idea that like these companies are maliciously and evilly just denying people.
It's not malicious
for no reason.
Well, first of all, you could say it's malicious, but I'm just saying that they're using these systems under the guise of, hey, we want to reduce our administrative costs. But you can look and they know in this Senate report that literally came out 2 months ago, they see that the costs that they're saving on their administrative costs are like $2 million. The cost that they're saving because of denials from the system they're using is like in the 10 times magnitude, 100 times magnitude.
But that
Do you
doesn't even
think
make
that
sense.
no
Wait.
one-
That doesn't even make sense because if they decrease their administrative costs, they would have to pay back premiums to their customers. Because if your administrative costs get too low, you have to pay out 80% of all of your premiums as healthcare costs. So if you were to reduce your administrative costs too much, and then that would to decrease, and you were like making more money than you were supposed to, you have to pay the premiums back. Companies have done this before. You can't just hoard premiums from customers. You have to pay this out to people.
And they do pay out a certain amount of claims. This is not about them denying literally every single claim, but that they are denying what I believe and what Soy Pill believes. And I just remember that Ash had something to say after this.
Also holding his hand. And
But
Professor, what about the question?
they are still denying what I believe to be in a wrongfully high percentage of claims.
High percentage of what? Like what kind of claims? How do we even know that? How do we even quantify that?
We can't say wrongfully high because they won't release the data.
So then how can you justify killing
so
somebody?
advocate under the.
I just have a part of my issue.
Easy.
Yes, I would agree with that. I also just have
Less
issues
murder,
with
more data. Let's go.
Yeah. Oh, also, I will note I'm not in support of murdering. I think choosing other options is usually the best choice. I think murder is bad. But I do think it happens nonetheless.
We have to do a little throat clearing, but we all get what you're trying to say. Let's give it to Ash. Ash has some things to say, and he's been trying to get in. Go ahead.
Yeah, just briefly, these rebates are the means by which these companies make up for their administrative costs. If you, because they have to file at the end of the year, sorry, not the end of the year, it's, I think their fiscal year, whatever, is July 31st is their filing deadline. Though if they file by, I believe it's September 15th, it's still considered on time. If you were to, let's say, hypothetically, deny or just delay claims by denying them, let them go through arbitration, whatever, you kick them back and forth, and eventually towards the end of the year, you find that, hey, some of these claims actually, if we pay these out, we're going to get a lot closer to our proper ratio of administrative costs. We might be a little bit over the line, but we can issue those as rebates, and by rebates here, we're looking at $54 checks to every single customer within the within their group of policyholders, right? Basically to every single customer of that company.
That's an interesting hypothesis, but then we should be able to do a very easy study and show, are you more likely to have a claim denied in the beginning or end of the year? We should be able to see that. Like, that would show up very easily, right?
How would we do that? Wait, how would we do that?
You could survey customers, you could survey hospitals, you could survey, what do you mean? There's a million ways you can measure that. When did you have a healthcare claim denied? Yes or no? And you say yes.
Yeah, but
when did
what
you file?
correlation are you looking for?
Well, if you're saying that people are going to deny claims at the beginning of the year and then wait until the end of the year to decide whether or not they're going to accept it or something. No, like,
did I make that argument that all claims are going to be denied at the beginning of the year?
You made it sound like they would wait until you made it sound like they would wait until the end of the year to determine whether or not they wanted to accept or reject some percentage of claims.
No, that would be patently absurd. You would pay as you go, and you would have a ratio that gets you closer and closer to that 80% ratio, but not too much over that, because then you've basically screwed yourself out of some administrative costs that you can manage. And then on top of that, you have unfulfilled claims at the end of the year because they're being arbitrated or being denied by automated systems or by systems that you've set up previously. And then you're over. It's operating under Price is Right rules, where you want to get as high as possible, but not too high, not over.
Sure, but I mean, this is going to be done on a rolling month. Why would you have to wait till the end of the year for that? You can just check month to month to see how your administrative cost to premiums are, right?
So if you're doing it month to month, are you going to go over every single month?
You're probably going to try to stay right within where you need to be every single month.
I would think that you would go a little bit lower if you have an easy out provided to you by the government that lets you hit that 80% ratio exactly on the dime.
Yeah, but that's because you're assuming, yes, but this is getting back to the other question. You're assuming then at the end of the year that they would just arbitrarily deny things for no reason just to maintain some thing, and nobody's demonstrated that.
I don't have to assume that at all. We know that denials happen all throughout the year. We know that some percentage of these denials stay denied because people just don't go through the administrative hassle or stress of arguing back and forth with their insurance company that, yes, I actually do need this surgery. I was in a car accident. This is covered. I would yes, something is wrong with my spine. 20 doctors have confirmed it. Sure, I'll go see your doctor 2.5 hours away if I must.
And I do think that goes again, once again, back to
it sounds like, just real quick, it sounds like your issue, it sounds like
to hit 75% at the end of the fiscal year, and for them to have a means to make up that remaining 5% at the end of the year.
Yeah, so the one example you just gave was somebody seeing 20 out-of-network doctors who are going to an in-network doctor, then pay for a different insurance. Or
I've never said out-of-network doctor. That's just something that you made up.
What do you mean
by
most
insurance is provided by employers, to be clear. So you can't always just buy different insurance. It would include going to a different employer that buys different insurance packages and then offers you insurance.
No, I'm just talking about you get a physical exam from several different doctors and your treatment, which is a surgery, gets denied.
Why would you get a physical exam from several different doctors, and then if they recommended a treatment that you needed?
How about if the insurance company requests it from you because that's their condition for the denial or the adjudication or arbitration of this denial to proceed to the next step?
And then after the 20 that they requested, then you have to go to the one other one that they wanted you to see the first.
That would be pretty fucking absurd, and it's why an insurance company lost in a lawsuit describing this exact situation, which is why people are pissed off, by the way. You don't actually need to have a 10% death rate among healthcare companies.
So because somebody got sued once for an issue, that means that it's an industry-wide norm? I can show you. I can also show you. Hold on, I'm curious. Will you acknowledge that there are patients that scam doctors and insurance companies for medication?
100%. And hospitals.
And there are hospitals that scam patients as well, and there are doctors that scam hospitals by overcharging
the
overbilling.
recent anesthesia problem.
Okay, yeah, but we wouldn't say that. But we wouldn't say that all of these systems are corrupt because sometimes people scam people, right?
I didn't argue that at all. I just said that they had a financial incentive to act poorly because they have a get-out-of-jail-free card at the end of the year provided to them by the government.
I don't think you can defraud somebody of their insurance, and as long as you hit that 80-20 ratio, you're get-out-of-jail-free. You still have to give a reason why you deny people their claims. You have to give a reason for it. It's part of the law.
Sure, absolutely. And the hassle of
could you
stress
explain
leads
what
to
are the
some of
different
those denials being dropped. If you want to say that's not true, that's fine. If you want to say, like, hey, I don't think that this is a widespread problem, there's actually nothing going wrong here at all, that's totally fine. Just live with it is an acceptable answer. The problem is this shooting is a referendum on just live with it.
No, it's not. It's a crazy, random, rich loser guy who had no negative experiences with unaffordability of healthcare, unattainability of healthcare, who just wanted to kill somebody to get famous. That's all he's doing.
I don't think those are mutually exclusive at all. The leverage
Do you think that's why he killed him, to get famous?
Yeah, of course. What do you mean? What do you think his reason was?
I don't know. Did you read the book that he read? Yeah, I liked it. Do you think he wrote
the book that he read? He did write a manifesto.
He wrote a manifesto.
Say why he did it, right?
He tried to remain anonymous. Like he didn't. They caught him. It wasn't like, hey, look at me, everybody. Like, where's that?
The guy that wrote the manifesto tried to remain anonymous.
It wasn't released until they captured him. Yeah.
Okay.
Let's be clear, my argument doesn't believe on that. I don't think that those are mutually exclusive at all. He's definitely a weird, crazy weirdo. Go ahead.
I far prefer Ash's way of thinking about this in terms of incentive structures. I think it is perfectly reasonable to think, hey, there's a system here that might incentivize certain insurance companies to sometimes deny claims that they should otherwise pay out, assuming that even if the person appeals it, they will have to pay it out because they just expect the person not to appeal it. This definitely happens in car insurance. It's probably happens in health insurance. This is part of the ProPublica reporting. It's a good series. You guys should read it. It's convoluted and hard to appeal denials of health insurance. Sure, that probably happens. There's probably an incentive there.
It's not probably. Sometimes. This is there have been McKinsey documents released that proves this is their official strategy.
My question is, even if I concede that, I'm still not sure which parts of this are relevant to who gets the Luigi treatment, right? So you also have brought up institutions treating people as numbers that lead to harm or death. What other industries do this? I'm sure it's more than just health insurance, and I'm sure it's more than just car insurance. Do the CEOs of other companies that treat people as numbers for profit that leads to harm and death, do they get the Luigi treatment too? Right? And again, which parts of the C-suite get the Luigi treatment, right? Where do we cross this threshold, and which of these companies apply? And my other question that I was going to ask earlier, that and again, I'll try to not, I'm not trying to make you guys Fed post, but let's assume that Luigi had attempted his act and had failed, or had never attempted it at all, and you guys magically did know that Brian Thompson was the CEO of UHC, even though you didn't know that before. Would you be on this panel advocating that somebody go out and give him the Luigi treatment? And if not, why not? And if so, who else is on that list? I just don't know where this principled stance is coming from, that this is the thing to do now and it's good and we should praise him for it.
Well, this is the whole second part of my argument. I'm glad you asked. So, I don't condone necessarily the murder, but the reason I don't is because I think we are closer than we ever have been to getting a single payer, except for maybe not ever have been because of who's about to be president. But it is possible to reform within the system. It is possible to elect someone who will actually change this. The issue I have is, while I might not have that issue, what do you tell the people who are dying and suffering today because of these policies? What are they supposed to do to fight this? Because you can say, hey, in 2 years, maybe we'll have someone who changes this. In 4 years, AOC is going to be president. Maybe she'll, do some crap. But what the hell do you tell the person today that their mom is being denied her medication and dying, that is not getting the...
The reality is, the problem is that that's just probably not really happening. This is a fabrication that you're putting in front of people because it sounds good, because very few of you, if any of you, and you even have engagement with the healthcare system. This didn't even crack the top 5 issues that Americans voted on last election cycle.
Because no one knows. You should have killed someone before.
No one knows that everybody in the U.S. is dying because they can't get medication. How is it?
When did I say everybody?
How is it that you?
First of all, the number is like 40,000, and that's probably inflated.
How is it that people in Colorado and Pennsylvania and Michigan are somehow convinced that illegal immigration is one of the worst issues facing this country, but they don't know that health insurance and healthcare is one of the worst?
That's what people are talking about, and now we're talking about healthcare. And if a bunch more people did that, maybe they would have voted on that in the election, but they didn't, and
Yeah,
no
but
one
if you're
did. Like I
saying
said,
that
you
we
had
have
no
to-
videos on it before. A lot of people weren't talking about this.
Sure, and if nobody's talking about it, what would that lead you to believe? It seems like it's probably not having the impact that you're trying to make us believe. If the only way you can get somebody to care about a particular, you don't have to talk about inflation.
Are you implying that if no one's talking about something, it's not happening?
What I'm implying
When's
is
the last
that
time you saw them talk about climate change
you
on
gotta let
Fox News?
Destiny
Is it
answer
not
that.
climate
happening?
change is
Hold on.
talked about almost constantly? What are you talking about? It was part of major legislative packages that Biden passed.
On Fox News.
On
They're
Fox
talking
News, they
about the
have
problem
anti-climate-
that climate change is. They're talking about, wow, the climate's really in trouble and we really need to do something about it.
They're probably giving opinion. They're probably anti-climate change, but they're probably articles on it that I can find in the last
they
week.
bring up the Biden bill, they dismiss it immediately, and then they don't talk about it again. And then
There's
suddenly
literally
it's not a
5
problem because
articles in the past 2 days. Blue state governor's climate law, a plot to get left.
yeah, they're all talking about how much they hate the people trying to solve climate change. They're not really talking about climate change
Yes,
and the
but
effects
the point
of it
that
at
I'm
all.
but the point that I'm giving you is that if nobody's even really talking about this till somebody gets killed, it's kind of strange to come out and be like, oh yeah, healthcare is like killing tens of thousands of people in the United States every
first
single
of
year.
all,
It's like, how
Well, I
many
mean, I
people
think
that
this is- I
I'm gonna
think-
finish
are
the
being
sentence. I'm
talked
going to finish
to.
the sentence before I get cut off. Holy shit!
ahead, sorry.
The issue is that you're on one hand we're saying that healthcare and lack and denials and claims are poor moms, because this is the example you keep giving. Poor moms are dying because they're not getting their pharmaceutical whatever they need because health insurance companies are arbitrarily denying them these things. I feel like if this was happening at an appreciable level and aren't just like horrible mistakes or companies individually just making bad decisions or wrong decisions, if this is like a norm in the industry, we'd be hearing about this a ton. It wouldn't just be an issue that's being brought up now because Luigi shot some dude.
Yeah, did you read the Senate report
I mean,
on this?
Summarize it for me. What is the Senate report on this that you want to summarize?
Yeah, so essentially they investigated that the post-acute care that's supposed to be provided to people was being denied at rates like 3, 4, 16 times higher than the normal denial rate after these systems were implemented. Post-acute care being denied does end up permanently hurting people, taking all the money out of their pocket, or killing them. Do you deny that that's true?
I don't deny that a Senate report said it. Wait, so real quick.
Do you want here? I'll link it to you. In the,
Yeah, go
is
for
there
it.
like a
Link it.
chat
And
here?
go ahead and I'll go through it. Wait, is this one released on October 17th? Okay, sorry, go for it.
Yeah, that's the one. You got it. Cool.
Okay.
I would also just like to note, I think part of the reason that we see, I mean, first off, I would argue that right now over the past 2.5 decades, we're actually seeing an all-time low in the American opinion of their health insurance. I would also like to note that that insurance agencies actually spend a large portion of their profit, or I guess not profit, of their revenue on
administrative
advertising, explicitly because a lot of what an insurance agency is selling, it isn't actually something tangible. It's the feeling of safety. It's the idea that you can go out and drive, and maybe if you end up in a horrible accident, you're not going to be fucked up the ass because of it. So I think that has to be considered when you're talking about the American public's perception of insurance agencies as a whole. That's why they spend so much money. And I think that's also why they purport themselves to be, a friendly neighbor, why they say that you're in good hands, why they have a cute little gecko that's selling you something, and they have amazing jingles for every single one.
So just to kind of put things into context, while it perhaps may be true that we are at an all-time low, at least in America, for how they perceive the healthcare system, when you ask people how they perceive their individual healthcare coverage, it's 60 to 70% approval rates, right? Like a majority of people like the coverage that they get. And I do think Destiny's statement that a lot of people don't actually have that much interaction with their coverage in the first place goes to explain that. A lot of people don't have to make claims, and a lot of people aren't making claims until part of the way, a considerable way through their life in the first place. So I understand, but I don't know if that actually goes to address the whole issue.
Well, what does that say if the people that are the most supportive of Luigi are young people who don't really engage with healthcare that much in the United States?
I think it says that a lot of people feel really disenfranchised with the future of health in America. I think there have been, obviously tensions have been rising politically across the board, and I think a lot of people are scared that they won't be able to afford their future health care, especially seeing as technology advances in a lot of different aspects of the application of their healthcare.
Wait,
I
so
think all
young
the other
people are
people
worried
who-
because they think they won't be able to afford it in the future, but the people that are currently engaging with the medical systems have a higher opinion.
All the people that would have voted yes died because of denial. So
Well, like I said, I think a lot of the people that are voting yes probably don't have as intimate understanding and experience with the insurance industry as a whole, because I covered earlier about 80% about 80% of claims are approved. It's not that every single claim is being denied.
I just have such people right now are disaffected with every possible institution, right? Ratings for every institution at all levels are kind of at all-time lows when it comes to trust. And healthcare, based on the stats Wick just gave us, I haven't actually looked at this particular stat, seems to be doing better than almost any other institution. So yeah, people are bummed right now about a lot of things, but a lot of that is vibes, and a lot of that is not actual, it doesn't actually track reality always. And so I don't know why I should hang my hat on, well, people are sometimes bummed about it, and the people who are most bummed, as Destiny is saying, are the people who are least involved with it right now and who know the least about it. Well, I don't particularly care. I think there's merit to some of what you guys are saying. Hey, we should see more of the data about whose claims are getting denied and why. There are provisions in the ACA that could allow us to see more of this data that, for whatever reason, for various reasons, lobbying and everything else, have not been chased down. So maybe we can push for that, right? But I'm just not seeing where in this whole conversation we're having, we've crossed the threshold of now you get the Luigi treatment. And well, again, I don't see you all grappling really effectively with the actual implications of saying, well, the Luigi treatment, at least in this case, was justified, because I'm just not seeing any serious wrestling with what else is justified on the arguments you're giving me.
I just like to know, again, I don't think that anybody should be going out and getting murdered. I personally am against murder in basically all the options. If we can exhaust, just like with healthcare, if we can exhaust all the other options first, I want to do that first. This is why I in my opening, and I keep going back to it, I think this is a result of tensions. I think this is a result of the modernization of society leading to higher rates of political violence in the first place. And I think I think health insurance agencies, I think companies in general should keep in mind that they are, at the end of the day, selling to individuals who are going to have feelings. They're going to respond to the feelings, which is why I keep saying murder does happen. Whether or not we justify it or whether or not we think it's morally good, it's going to happen, and there should be mitigating factors.
I'm going to assume that the insurance adjusters have possibility of social unrest priced into the algorithm they're employing, yeah.
Ash has been raising his hand for a while.
I can do this. I promise you, right? Everyone wants to try to help moderate. I get it. I'll make sure that the people who get to speak are the ones that are...
So when it comes to young people, about 15% of them are being actively treated for mental health issues that's going to interact with healthcare or health insurance in some way. The reason why fraud and other financial crimes are treated with not just making up for the original loss.
Wait, hold on, real quick. Wait, what was that 15% speaking to? What was the point of bringing that up?
Do you want to wait until I finish the end of it?
Well, no, because you just lied, kind of. You just implied a falsehood. I said earlier that younger people generally don't have as much engagement with healthcare as older people, and it feels like you brought that up to try to fight against that claim. Are you fighting against my characterization that older people have much more engagement with the healthcare system than younger people? If so, just say that.
Older people have much more engagement. Older people have much more engagement than young people.
Okay, just making sure.
General.
All right, go ahead.
Do you have anything else to add?
Go ahead.
No, that's good. Just make sure we're clear.
Any other confusion about whether the statistic there?
Crystal clear.
Do you have any kind of confusion as to whether or not the statistic is accurate, that 50% of them are interacting with, being treated for mental health?
15 or 50?
15. No, 50 would be really high.
Oh, 15% have, in the past year have sought some kind of treatment? Probably this sounds okay to be sure.
Yeah, so they're interacting with the healthcare industry. And so the point I would bring up is hey, these people are being treated. They're interacting with the healthcare industry. Sorry, I just got back on track. So the reason why financial crimes are treated they're not just punished for the original loss, they're not just punished for the time value of money that hasn't been collected in the meantime, and other kind of financial stress or emotional stress or whatever, but are often treated with punitive damages, sometimes an order of magnitude in excess of the original claim, is because fraud has a corrosive effect on the rest of business writ large, the rest of culture writ large, society writ large. And that's why we punish them so heavily when we do find, especially insurance companies, one of the great successes of the American legal system is that when these do eventually get to court, a lot of them are really raked over the coals by judges, which is, again, a point in favor of the American legal system. The reason
wouldn't that also be a point against the for example,
Against Luigi.
extrajudicial killings?
Yes. No, yes, it would. The reason that happens is, again, because it's corrosive to the rest of people's trust in the care that they're engaged with. And the problem there is that healthcare or health insurance, all insurance really, is not just selling risk management, but selling trust. And so if you have this system that's corrosive to social trust writ large, that's going to lead. How many people are not going to appeal claims that could have been sent through because they just don't want to deal with the hassle, or they think that they're going to have to engage in some long, drawn-out legal battle in order to actually get their needs met? How many people are not going to go to the doctor and not get preventative treatment that might have saved their lives because they just don't want to go through that hassle?
Real quick, to engage with that.
Let me.
How does Luigi doing what he did influence that in a positive manner?
In a positive manner? This dovetails with a few other threads that we were going through earlier, but it puts a face.
I'm giving you this opportunity.
Yeah, no, it puts a face to an evil group of people and personalizes it for the rest of society. So now that healthcare, which is this amorphous, problematic issue that a lot of people deal with, a lot of people, by the way, still say they might be happy with their healthcare, but something like 70% of them say that it's stressful or like a major hassle. That percentage of people who are happy with their healthcare overall has gone down significantly just over the past year. The recent Gallup polls have been down about like 10 to 20% across the board. If you just compare it to 2023.
I'm looking at it right here on Gallup. It's a 2% decrease, which is a decrease, but it's not 10, 20 points.
All right.
At least for the Americans' views of the quality and coverage of their own healthcare.
The Ipsos poll went down to...
You keep citing data, but it's not complete data and it's not accurate data. It's data that is very seen through very specific lenses that seem to strengthen your point.
Which is why I offer the competing point that like 3 in 5 Americans view it as being very stressful, which is obviously going to be harmful to their health. Like, obviously. So the whole point of killing somebody in that case and what the effect that has on the conversation is a reminder that the people doing this, whatever this happens to be, have names and addresses. And so that provides people a little bit more leverage, a little bit more negotiating power. I don't think it's right. I definitely want a ceasefire here. But if people are going to defraud and corrode social trust over and over and over again for the hope that they can keep their margins up, then I'm not going to feel bad about it. And that's why you've seen like this outflow of overall support. God, I really wish you hadn't interrupted me in the middle of that. I had a broader point that I forgot.
I have a question. Okay, you're arguing that this incident gives the people who have grievances more leverage in the power struggle of resolving whatever problems exist. Do you think that this gives them more leverage than legal decisions against these companies? So United Health Group, for example, in the past, in the mid-2000s, I believe, if I'm remembering correctly, had a CEO who was ousted through a weird stock buyback fraud thing and was forced to pay back hundreds of millions of dollars of blah, 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 right? That significantly hurt the company, significantly hurt that person, pushed him out of it, his position, pushed the company to adopt new policies. Do you think that did more damage to the company, or that like killing him at that point would have done it? Or for Brian Thompson, right, who was currently the subject of a lawsuit and an investigation into insider trading and a variety of other alleged crimes, right? Do you think that if that had gone through and had been chased down to its end, that would have given people more leverage, or, just shooting them in the back on the street did it? I guess, like, on the question of efficacy, I'm just not convinced by any of you. And it seems like some of you all are saying, well, I don't know if he was justified. I'm not arguing for it, but, maybe it's fine.
Let me respond to that directly with two examples. One, I don't think that it would have provided, I don't think that the lawsuit going forward would have provided anybody leverage, because again, Brian Thompson, to your point, nobody knew who Brian Thompson was before this at all. The point of leverage is
if the lawsuit is about internal policies of the company that are ultimately defrauding the customers of the company, and they're being punished for that at a national scale to the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars. Does that not help the customers of the company? Like, I just don't understand.
Only if they organize around it, and only if they know that it's happening. But to our earlier points, the reason why so many claims get denied and then do not proceed forward in arbitration whatsoever is because people view it as a hassle. The legal means of legal recourse is viewed as being sometimes above your station or inaccessible for whatever reason. It's unfortunate. It's often, by the way, not true. And it's a shame that people don't proceed with arbitration more often. They would have less hassle if they did take that additional step forward. However,
how do we know? Wait, how do we know that it's not just that most of the claims denied were probably denied for an acceptable reason?
What does acceptable reason mean in this case? That it doesn't harm the person for having it denied, or the delay in their health
or that it's not
coverage
actually
hasn't harmed them at all?
eligible under the terms of the contract.
Or that a doctor just put in the wrong number. To be clear, there are tons of claims
which
that are
gets
denied
adjudicated between the doctor and
incorrectly.
the insurer, or the hospital and the insurer usually, right? So
Wait, I have a
that's the
stat on
other
this.
reason these
Patient
stats are not
suffers in the
helpful, right?
meantime.
Is because when it's errors in paperwork or when it's pre-authorization things, these are solved between the provider and the insurance company, not the patient. The patient is not usually liable for things like paperwork errors that you were describing earlier.
Well, that still doesn't go.
That also
If the
forces
patient's not,
that also
if the
delays
patient
their
doesn't have
treatment.
access to care for some certain, if the patient doesn't have access to care when they need it, it doesn't matter whether or not it was a doctor's fault or the insurance company's fault, or maybe the insurance company is being a little unfair in this one.
It matters
We
to
don't
the
know
guy
what
you
percentage
killed,
of these
though, right?
denials happen after the treatment, right? We don't have any numbers about that either. So the majority of these could be denial after treatment is provided. The insurance company comes back and says, we're not going to pay for that. And then the hospital and the insurance company fight it out. We don't have the numbers for this.
Yeah,
right?
they should
And
release
in the
this to make it
meantime,
easier.
if
Wait,
you
hold on.
require
Let me
for
look
the-
at that.
Advocate
Oh my
for
God.
that.
I do. So the Massachusetts Insurance Fraud Bureau. So this is something that interacts with the companies. The companies report cases that could be fraud from consumers to them. They had 17,274 cases over a 10-year period, and of those, only 368 were actually found to be fraud. So I know that's not reflective of the entire industry. This is just one example, but that was 2% of the entire potential fraud cases. So the other places that were denied, not saying 98% of them were denied for spurious claims, but a good chunk of them probably were. And
Wait a second. That number that you just cited, are you trying to convey the idea that the vast majority of what they consider fraud isn't fraudulent?
Yeah.
Okay, and then the proof for that was, tell me exactly what those two numbers are. Is it that 30,000?
So Massachusetts Insured Fraud Bureau, this is in the book that the shooter read, which I would recommend. It's really good. It's a 10-year period, 17,274 cases of reported fraud by the company, 6,600.
When you say cases of reported fraud, like these were court cases, or it's just that the company thought that we think that these are probably cases of reported fraud? Like they're not sent to a court.
I would guess the latter, because of those, the ones that were accepted by the Bureau, the ones that were actually referred to law enforcement were only 552. So of the 552, if you want to use that number, 368 out of 552, that's over 50% of them, but that's still a good chunk of them that are not fraud.
Oh, you see how huge your number, you see how you just went from 2% of those cases to over 50%, where you understand there's a huge difference between they thought something was fraudulent.
Sure, and that's why I said I don't think 98% of them are spurious denials, but I'm just saying that a lot of the suspected fraud is not fraud, and fraud is very rare. And of the ones that actually do go to court, which means it already passed the gate where they're like, okay, this is definitely something here. Yeah, over 50% of them are done it. I'm not trying to do a sneaky little numbers game here. It's just a matter of the suspected case.
This is sneaky because there's a lot of different things being said here. A case, do we mean a court case, or do we mean just a suspected case of fraud?
The court cases were of 552,
I understand, yes, I understand.
So that's after that.
I understand, but then also, you're not talking about fraud that's actually been committed. Are these cases that are recommended to a DA for criminal prosecution of fraud, where the evidence is going to be
552 is referred to law enforcement authorities for possible prosecution.
Okay,
yes,
so you're talking about
so
you're talking about fraud at a criminal level. Of course, that's going to be incredibly difficult to prove. There's a 99% burden. And if they're over 50% on the threshold for that, well, I guess it's probably 80, 90, 95% of these things then were probably actually fraudulent, right? Because this was proven in criminal court, right? And also, does that 52%, does that include settlements or pleading? Oh no, you can't settle. I'm sorry. Do these include plea deals, or are these just cases that went to trial and ended in conviction, or just?
I think these are all suspected of criminal fraud.
Okay, so Okay, so then assuming then everything that you just said was true, and I'm taking some of these things at face value, and now we've corrected.
It might not be true. I'm reading it from the book. But
Sure. Over half of the cases that were suggested to authorities, over half of those that were litigated ended in conviction. I don't know if the other half ended in plea deals or not, but even that rate is pretty high. So it's not just
right. But the other 17,000 are, hey, we're suspecting this is criminal, and of those, thousands and thousands were said, okay, no, there's nothing here. That's what I'm saying.
Oh, there's nothing here. Or, oh, we don't believe we can convict beyond.
That might be the case. It could be that they just say, look, we don't have the evidence.
Okay,
for this.
that is the case because that's how criminal court works in the United States of America. But
what I'm saying is like maybe a large percentage more. I don't know how much percentage more, but like this looks to me like fraud is not nearly as prevalent as these insurance companies intend to produce. I mean,
I don't know if insurance companies claim that fraud is a huge issue. I think it's just
they do. There's a whole chapter in the book about how they advertise fraud as the worst thing ever, and they're spending tons and tons of money trying to project it as the biggest problem in the world because that justifies them denying claims that may or may not be justified in being denied.
Okay, the vast majority of healthcare costs for insurance companies go into like paying for healthcare. I think the issue is just the rising costs of healthcare. It's not just people like committing fraud. Like a lot of that outpatient stuff you mentioned that I'm reading through this like Senate thing has to do with like post care for senior citizens. That's like some of the most expensive care that can be provided for. Like it's not a fraudulent issue. It's just a massively expensive expenditure.
Right. It's the most expensive and it's the most critical to those people, and they're denying that and ludicrously higher rates than they used to do because of these systems that they're using.
Yeah. So unfortunately. And I'm still reading through this, you say they're denying it at ludicrously higher rates than they used to. One of the big issues that I have with everybody that talks about literally anything in terms of data is when people are saying since 2019 to 2022, like
COVID.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of stuff that is making data like really crazy in this like 3-year time period, and it's like very sketchy when somebody's saying there's like.
Good that you mentioned that. You can look at the data and you can see that the number of people being applying for that care is much higher, which is probably due to COVID. But the percentage denial rate is still increasing.
Yeah, sure, but I'm just saying that the types of like acute post acute care or whatever that's being sought might be higher as well, and yeah.
This is a point you made, Soy Pill, in your video as well. Not to keep bringing it back to that. I don't want to.
That's okay. Keep mentioning my video. Everyone should go watch it.
Oh, go watch the Soy Pill video. It's quite good. It's enjoyable. But you show this graph of people in the U.S. who self-report delaying medical treatments at higher rates over recent years, and the sharpest increase in that rate is in COVID tide, right? So I think there's lots of reasons why people would avoid seeking medical treatment during this time, right? Like if I just have a random cold or if I just have a random small injury, but I don't want to go to the doctor or the hospital, it's already overloaded because I've been told we're going to flood the whole system, etc. Like, yeah, of course.
Yeah, and if systems that are used to deny these things at a specific rate are still in place before and after COVID, of course, then the more people that apply, the more people that are going to be denied. So I'm not saying it's all because of some, crazy malicious.
I mean, that's true whether fraud is happening or not, right? Like if more people apply, more people will get denied, right? Like that's true.
Exactly. But the rate is going up too. It's not just the quantity. I do want to ask you something, Professor, because you mentioned, this is happening.
Just a little housekeeping thing. I want to get to that. Okay. Thank you. Soy.
Go ahead. What I wanted to ask, and I know this is an argument that I think Destiny has used before, a lot of people have used. So if we take something like January 6th, which I think was, completely based on lies, but you have a bunch of people who believe that every legal means of everything is exhausted to them, and they have no other choice but to go and commit some sort of heinous act to get what they want, and what they see as justice. In these cases where, Destiny, you still are not on the same page as me as whether or not the healthcare is doing this, but just for the sake of argument, let's assume that healthcare is denying at unfair rates, that they are doing what is tantamount to killing some percentage of people, even if they're not doing it maliciously. If that is the case, and if incremental change is not fast enough for the people that are being harmed by this, Professor and Destiny, what other recourse? Because I said this at the beginning, I will concede, if you can show me what immediate recourse these people have to take action and actually do something about it, what can they do?
I would not say that people in a variety of circumstances, even that might be life-threatening, necessarily always have immediate just recourses, right? There are people who develop cancer from some like malicious negligence or incompetence on the part of some company or party that dumps chemicals in the wrong place by a school or something, right? Like those people, by dint of their imminent death, do not gain the right to go kill the people who cause these problems, even if it threatens their life, right? So I just...
Wait, why not? You obviously you believe in self-defense, right? I know that's not analogous one-to-one, but there's some line in between.
Right, I would say
as you separate like the,
Right.
the
Imminence,
action from
imminence
the.
is the issue, right? If someone is right now doing something that will in the immediate future.
Okay, so for
in
the
my
sake of
life,
argument, someone if they don't get their health care will die.
Well, hold
which
on.
is a
I
thing
think
that
there's
happens.
probably a
It's not that
big.
big of
I think there's a
percentage.
big distinction between like a negative and a positive action as well. There's a big difference between somebody's doing something to kill you versus somebody's withholding something to kill you as well.
Yeah.
Right.
You stole it from me, but that's fine. Yeah,
Like if you were, let's say that somebody broke into your house and you're on the verge of starvation and they stole all your food. Like, could you kill that person breaking your house? You could probably kill that person even
Yeah.
if they're breaking your car. I think that we.
these are the intuitions, by the way, behind maritime law
Yes.
that says that you get the death
I do
penalty for
Sure,
stealing
but-
water at sea. Right?
Sure,
Well,
but
let him
wait,
finish
but like
thinking.
let's say that you're starving. Do you have the right to break into a store owner's bakery and kill them to steal their goods?
Yeah,
If
the
you
difference
do,
is
it's a
I
far
already
different
paid for
argument.
the bakery goods. They owe me the bread, and they're just saying no.
Yeah,
right?
that's not happening in the United States.
No, not a single person is denied the rightful payout.
I didn't say not a single person, but that's an
Okay, so if
exceedingly
one
rare
person,
event.
okay, maybe it is exceedingly rare. Let's assume it is. Is that one person justified in then killing the person who denied them that care?
I think that unfortunately, I think that this situation is there's too much obfuscation between the provider and the patient to draw a clear line there. If you did want to draw that clear line and say they could kill the person for doing it, then they would be justified morally to kill every single person up the chain of command. So you could go to the hospital.
What if the people are going to get fired if they don't do it, but the person in charge who implements these systems has the power to change it and doesn't?
Wouldn't he get fired too?
Yeah, but he
Getting
could
fired if
be a
you don't do
whistleblower.
it. But,
Actually,
I'm sorry. Are you saying that those people are justified in saying, "Oh no, I'd lose my job if I saved this person's
Yeah,
life"?
if they'd
and
starve
they
to
take
death on
that
the street
choice?
or be homeless,
Oh.
yeah, they're much more
No,
justified.
those people are complicit too, right? If you're
Less
in a situation
complicit.
where you can save someone's life or lose your job, you should save their life, of course, right? And that person's a bad person if they don't.
Like,
but I'm
think of
not
the
going to
moral-
kill
the
the
moral-
person.
like,
who
do you
makes
think-
self-
think of-
But the
difference.
difference
Just real quick. Think of the moral
Hey,
universe
what
you're
is that?
creating. You're standing right in front of a doctor, and you're like, "I'm having a heart attack. Like I'm going to die." A cardiologist is right in front of me, and the guy's like, "Sorry, bro, but I'm off my shift." And you go, "Well, you know what? Fuck you, cardiologist. I'm going to go kill this health insurer that's not paying you money to give me this treatment." Like, how does that make sense? You should be able to kill the doctor at that point, right?
Is he hot?
Yeah.
Wait, so okay.
True.
No,
Is he
no, actually, wait, I
Italian?
want to
That's
engage
the
with
real
that, though. So-
question. Well,
Okay, go ahead.
I was just wondering if somebody for
I do
if
want
somebody
people to
was
answer
having an
Destiny's
extreme-
question, though. I'll let you go, but I want to gauge with that point, right? Destiny made a point here. Like, do you have the right, a doctor, right, a cardiologist, someone refuses
Yeah, so
to
like
provide
in that
care?
specific scenario, I would assume that a doctor, first of all, would probably just help that person anyway. But let's just say they're not.
Wait, they might. Hold on, wait, real quick. Big Papa Buckaroo, your mic, you lagged a ton during that. That's why everybody cut you off. It's because your thing was lagging, so nobody could hear you speak.
Oh, sorry.
You're good.
Okay, sorry.
Sorry,
Thank you.
Do I go or pop up?
You can go, whoever wants.
Yeah, so like if the doctor is, oh, hey, the system's not going to pay me, so I'm not going to help you. I think in a situation where someone was having a heart attack right in front of them, but regardless, for the sake of the hypothetical, let's say, oh, he's not going to do it because the system tells him he won't, and he will lose his job if he does end up doing that. I think the difference, and Professor, you were saying, oh, well, wouldn't the CEO get fired too? Yes, but the difference is the CEO has options afterwards, but someone in that system may or may not have options once they are fired. Maybe it's literally they're weighing their livelihood over someone else, and I would judge someone weighing their self over someone else. It's a 1-to-1, way less than it would someone who is completely capable of getting fired, surviving off the money he's built from being a CEO, and using that power and leverage and clout to go and spread the word, whistleblow, and say, hey,
Wait,
this is not okay.
How do you square
Let's
that
change
away
it.
with executing Nazi prison guards then?
How do I square? Well, because Nazis, it's not just, it's literally worse with Nazi prison guards. They would get killed if they would try to defect, right?
Yeah, but I thought you said that they should have been held fully responsible for what they did, or maybe that wasn't your claim.
Okay, I see. I say if they were actually engaged in those acts, if they had no other recourse, it's a lot harder to say like, hey, like, did you have an opportunity to like when you were on a march to go run off or
Hold on, just to be clear, a
exactly.
citizen living in Nazi Germany probably had a lot less recourse than a fucking person that works in health insurance billing or something, right? Or
Yeah,
or
sure.
hospital
Again,
administration,
but
right?
it depends on if they're directly involved in like, hey, I was shooting people in the back of the head while they tried to escape. Like, it's a little harder. It's a little more ambiguous, and I'd have to read up on the actual circumstances. There's a bunch of books I haven't gotten to, so. But I can see the
I'm actually
inconsistency there,
curious.
just to be fair. I
I'm
see what
actually
you're saying.
curious if somebody, for example, was having an acute mental event and they went out and committed a violent crime, and they had some sort of proposed reasoning behind it, but ultimately it was an acute mental event after a period of time of social alienation. Would you think that he should be killed?
The person having
Would it be justified for his killing?
Like killed at what point? Like in self-defense or after he'd already committed the act?
After he committed the act.
No, I think he should probably be arrested, and then the criminal justice system should treat him appropriately, right? If he was having a mental episode, then you weigh that differently, obviously, right?
Yeah, I guess the reason I'm asking is because at least with the New York statute on terrorism explicitly, it does bring the death penalty to the table in the first place. So when we're talking about whether or not Luigi is a terrorist, I do think that's something worth considering if the answer is yes, because he could be killed for exactly that.
Yeah, but then I mean that's going to be up to the prosecution to prove that he was of sound mind when he decided to murder the guy, right?
This is a defense that he could mount, right? He's pled not guilty. He could plead not guilty by reason of insanity. Like, there's all sorts of reasons why he could plead not guilty. But yeah, that's going to be up to them to prove. Like, if you plead insanity, it's a defense that you have to make a positive case for. So
I understand it's different when it comes to how it plays out in court. I was just asking about your personal opinion, Eucharist. I would love to hear your personal opinion on that as well. If having an acute mental event is justification ultimately.
Yeah, I'm in to quote Samuel L. Jackson from Pulp Fiction, I'm in a bit of a transitional period when it comes to the death penalty in general. So I'm not entirely sure how to answer the question, but
I feel that too. Yeah.
I think same thing as Destiny. Like, I think we handle it well in our justice system, which is saying, like, there's a certain class of people where we can understand why they did something that we would ordinarily kill someone for, that this person we might want to give them alternative, life in prison or some sort of mental health accommodation. I'm sure, but that's a thing that would have to be positively defended.
Here's a question.
Destiny, I would love
Buckaroo.
to know your. I would really quick. I would just love to know, Destiny, your position on the death penalty.
I'm like 51-49 in favor of it. I can understand it being a class of crimes where somebody does something so horrible that the state and the people have decided that this is your penalty for this is death. Obviously, innocent people being executed sucks, but I don't have a strong feeling on it one way or another. I could be argued either way.
Okay, so my follow-up question is, let's say, hypothetical again, let's say Luigi finds out that Brian Thompson actually has a fatal form of cancer. And instead of going the short term, instead of just going and attacking him on the street, he actually figures out how to get a job at Brian Thompson's insurer. And then he becomes Brian Thompson's insurance agent. And then he instead just denies all of the claims for chemotherapy. Would you be in support of his claim denial then if it resulted in Brian Thompson's death?
Yeah, I wouldn't be in favor of it, but it doesn't even matter what the result is. The criminal intent was there to try to kill somebody, right?
That speaks.
If someone could accomplish this Looney Tunes level of conspiring, I'm not going to support it in principle, but I would.
Look, this is a Hallmark movie in the making.
I mean, even on the street would have been interesting if he just released a bunch of marbles and saw what happened.
Hold on, if I may, a more pertinent question along those lines, Buckaroo, the person who had the violent mental episode. It's shown later that they could have gotten care, like mental therapy, etc. The insurance, for whatever reason, didn't cover it. Are those insurance people who denied the coverage? Are they on the list? Are they responsible for what that man did?
I mean, my answer has been probably unsatisfactorily vague, because I think, of course, they would have played a part in it, but I don't think they, I don't think they beat somebody to death. I don't think they went out and committed a killing. I think the degree of separation does matter, but I don't think it completely removes any responsibility from people who are actively involved in the
But when we talk about
place.
holding people responsible, right? The problem with things like holding people accountable, holding people responsible, is you can mean a wide variety of things when you say that. Holding someone accountable could mean something like scolding, a fine, simply not going to another insurance company, a whole host of things, or it could mean literally putting them in front of a trial and charging them for murder, right? So when we make things like how responsible are they, these things, I just want us to be a little more specific when these things. And again, to your side's points here, I'm still waiting, right, for this justification. I'm not hearing it. I'm not hearing a justification of why it's okay that Luigi went out, got a gun, shot a man 3 times in the back, who, again, never did anything personally to him. He didn't deny him any coverage. At least he wasn't even his insurance provider. What makes this okay? And I'm hearing a lot of vague statistics about how people don't like health insurance. Fair, but there's multiple ways to change that in the American system that it just doesn't justify this at all.
I understand that. I actually think there should be an explicit differentiation between justification and whether it's morally good or bad. Whether I think something's morally good or bad doesn't change whether I think it was justified as a result.
Do you think it was morally good?
No.
Wait, how many people, just as a quick sanity check, I'm sorry, because I don't even know what our positions are right now in this debate. How many people in here think that it was like morally acceptable to whack the CEO dude?
No.
Okay, so now I thought this was like 3 on one side and 2 on the other, but now I feel like we're 1 on, okay.
Well, that's why earlier when we brought up the question of justification, I said that I felt differently. That's why I kind of like did a little because I think there is some justification for it, because I think a part of it is just a result of the interactions between these two people. I think you can't.
Well, stop saying interactions between these two people, because there were no negative interactions between him and the healthcare system, right? It sounds like.
Do you just mean like then that you understand why he did it? I'm just trying to figure out what.
Here, because this is getting a little ridiculous. The phrasing of "okay" was fucking retarded. Was morally okay. That's way too fucking broad. The question is, am I okay with it? No, it's what am I going to do? What do I feel responsible for as a citizen if somebody engages in a crime against somebody else? That question becomes a lot more complicated the greater the scale of the crime is, and my personal motivation to do something is going to be different depending on how far removed I am from that other person, as well as their own moral character. That's the problem. If Stalin gets mugged, murdered, and raped in that order in an alleyway, I don't have to view the mugger, murderer, rapist as a hero in any capacity. But I do get to be happy that Stalin is dead. If I've been negatively affected by Stalin, or if I regard him as being
Are you
having
happy
a negative
that the
effect.
CEO of that Brian Thompson is dead?
Very.
Okay.
Maybe that's what we should have asked. I don't know, because to me that's sort of what I'm looking for. Are you happy that he's dead? Is it a good thing that happened?
Yeah,
if you want to
I think
separate
that people who
if you're engaged in crime,
what are we arguing about at this point? If you don't,
vicious, disgusting crimes that you can engage in the insurance industry. Sorry, tripping over my words. In the insurance industry specifically, because you're breaking trust, which is not only going away from your financial responsibilities, but like you are selling trust to begin with.
Just as a quick heads up, because we keep going back here, but nobody has any numbers. Like the vibe on the other side is that health insurance companies, when they deny things, they're just doing it for profit and for lulz and just to f with people. And it's all
not the
unjustified.
vibe. It's the documented cases from
whatsoever.
McKinsey and all these other companies.
I don't think it is the documented cases. None of
It's
the numbers
literally
presented.
they let it out in the documents. Go fucking read them. I know you haven't, but just go
Which
read them
ones?
now. Like you have time. The
McKinsey-
leaked documents from the
McKinsey
McKinsey
and
Allstate
Company
company.
He's
I
specifically
find that
referring to the
argument
McKinsey
doesn't
and
rely on
Company
this at all.
documents that were.
One at a time. Hold up. You're
This
all
is-
three talking at the same time. One at a time. One person. One. Explain this. Go ahead, Buckaroo. You're the most eager.
This is a McKinsey and Company document. McKinsey and Company is a consulting firm that was hired by I think it was 5 of the biggest insurance companies in the United States in
Health
the
insurance
90s,
companies
and
or
insurance companies, because insurance companies in general cover more options than just health insurance. And when you're talking about things like auto insurance will usually cover a part of the claim, and then the rest of the claim goes to the health insurance company. When it comes,
do you understand that health
this
insurance is like
consulting
is a very special and separate, like unique industry? It's not, I don't think it's comparable easily to other types of industries. Like we use health insurance way differently than we use any other type of insurance, and the amount of regulatory framework around. Yeah, okay.
Right. I was just explaining to you that when we're talking about things like car insurance, health insurance, they are at least to a certain extent intertwined, because at first the claim goes to the car insurance and then it goes to health insurance afterwards. Once the car insurance, if, for example, you get into an accident and I'll use my grandmother's experience. Actually, that's why I'm in her house with these beautiful curtains. My grandmother was recently hit by a car. She was hit by a car. The person who hit her was insured, and because of that, her claim first goes to the auto insurance, goes to the claimant's auto insurance, the claimant being the person who hit her in the first place, and then the auto insurance gets to pay out a certain amount of the claim. Then it gets bumped to health insurance to finish finish paying out the claim. Now, when it comes to the McKinsey and Company documents, these are documents that were exposed in a legislation. I don't remember the specific case, but during a case with Allstate explicitly, where Allstate released the documents that were given to them by the consulting firm that list in, I believe, like 150 pages exactly the tactics they should be utilizing in insurance agencies. This was in the 1990s, which is also
Papa, they didn't release them. They prevented them from coming out for weeks and weeks and years until
yes, they prevented them from coming out, and then when they did give them over, they actually gave them unphotocopiable papers. They made it so you couldn't photocopy them, and then after having those returned by the lawyer, the Allstate then just waited around before eventually being forced to give up these documents. But they are documents from the consulting firm explicitly establishing a new standard of how insurance agencies should pursue paying out claims. And this was
after the release of these documents, was any company prosecuted for?
No, they weren't. It was crazy.
Were there any investigations into any of these companies?
Yeah, there were, and they found them not to be like criminally liable. In fact, every time this happens, the same with the Andrew Cuomo case in 2009, where they say, hey, you are not calculating reasonable and customary fees with your systems. You are defrauding customers. These are like exact words. No criminal charges. No criminal charges ever come of this. And that's my whole point of, if these people are never going to be criminally charged for the actions of denying people rightful care, which
wait. So how
just
are
for the sake of hypothetical, just assume it's happening. Why is it in your mind?
No. You can't just assume it's happening, because obviously that's the entire argument.
Well, that's how we get to the more interesting.
Why are you assuming that? Well, it's not more interesting. It's boring, because we all agree past that point. I think all of us here agree. Well,
I don't think we do.
I could get you, Christopher. If the companies were literally like maliciously denying claims just to watch people die for the lulz and money, right? You have a very strong argument for engaging in
just the money, not the lulz. But if that's true, I think I can convert you.
You have some argument there, possibly. But why would you assume that if they weren't able to actually convict anybody, why would you assume that it was all? What is the implication, that the government was being corrupt and not investigating?
No, the implication is that people view the status quo of denying people using a system. It's not directly killing someone. It's not directly robbing someone. I'm just using a computer. The computer has this segmented way of processing claims, and that way is not giving people what they rightfully owe. Hey, you guys need to fix this. Wait,
you just begged away all of the what they rightfully owe. So that would be, I would imagine, that would be at the very least tort. At the very least, you've got contract violation.
First of all, tort is everything except contract violations. Second of all, if you're giving, you're promising this is what we're going to pay out if you give us this money, and you don't do that when it's rightfully owed. If there's all these cases coming out where they're saying, hey, here's all the documents you requested, give me the money, and they say no, because they know if they delay that, they can get you to either give up or grind you into the ground.
So is there a single civil case that somebody is like demonstrating this, or like class action lawsuits?
Yeah, there's a bunch. And if you read the book by the guy who wrote the fucking manifesto, you'd know all of this, but you didn't. And I know you like to shit on people who don't do research before, but I know you didn't read that book. And it's really frustrating.
That's right. I haven't read every single book on this, but
I'm not saying you have to. Just to be clear, every single time I bring up a single fact, you're like, oh, do you have a source?
Hold on. We got to go one at a time. Sure. Screaming at each other won't work. Finish your point, Soy, then Destiny gets to respond uninterrupted. Go ahead.
Let him go.
If you've read a book and the only thing you can say is you needed to read the book, then you didn't understand the book, and you shouldn't waste your time reading the book. There are much better things. That's the only thing you're saying. Let me finish.
If you're going to let Destiny go, you got to let Destiny go.
Yeah, so saying that I read the book, you need to read the book over and over again means that you shouldn't have wasted your time reading the book. Number one. Number two, if you did read the book and you did actually assimilate some reasonable information from it, it sure would be nice if you could bring up a single thing impacting health insurance, especially in a post-ACA world. And if you're just citing this McKinsey leak over and over and over and over again, which is consultations to non-health insurance related companies in a pre-ACA world, what the fuck is even the carryover to the health insurance?
So ignoring all the other cases I brought up, ignoring the Senate thing that came out 2 months ago, ignoring all of this, like I'll keep bringing up sources, I'll keep bringing up what I read in the book, I'll keep like trying to like scroll through my 14 pages of documents, but then you just keep denying. It's like, oh well, I still don't think it's happening. Like I don't know what to tell you. Like I can keep showing you these.
Why not, instead of just naming and blurting out a bunch of random shit that's not applicable, give me the strongest thing, and we can start there. That's what people normally do. Give the strongest thing.
What is the strongest thing that you need to see that would prove and change your mind?
Well, you're talking about like arbitrarily denying things for unjustifiable reason, unjustifiable cause.
So what is not being shown that is the case in the Senate report?
The Senate report, one, it's not even showing that. It's just showing that there's an increase of denials, and it's only talking about outpatient care related to Medicare Advantage patients. That's only one sector of what's even being talked about.
Okay, and
So
I'm not
number
saying
one.
it.
Number two.
So would it have to be widespread? Would it have to be everything?
No,
or
it
you wouldn't change your mind?
wouldn't necessarily have to be. You could show me in that industry. But number two, I don't think in that Senate report, but from what I just read, it doesn't even seem like they're alleging anything actually wrong happening where they found
Criminal?
wrong.
Yeah, that's the fucking point. It's
Hold
not.
on.
They don't
They're
think
just
it's
saying
criminal.
So then wait, if the issue is just that denials have gone up for some reason, okay, of which who
Not
knows
for
if it's
some reason for the system.
For
that
the
is
system.
arbitrarily denying things on
Yes.
things that when
Where in the Senate
read
report-
by adjusters,
I'm
they
sorry.
say this
Yes.
Hold on,
isn't
maybe I can
fair.
help.
Wait.
Give us-
Where in that Senate report? Just show me. Then tell me which page. It was like 50 pages. Okay, I read about 25 of them, and then I skimmed the rest. Where in that report does it say they are arbitrarily or unfairly or unjustly or in violation of their agreements denying
Let's
people
see.
insurance claims? Just where's that?
Yeah, it says at the very bottom, there's a role for the free market to improve the delivery of healthcare to America's seniors, but there is nothing inevitable about the harms done by the current arrangement. Insurers can and must do better. Yeah, thanks, Senate. For the sake of the American healthcare system and the patients the government entrusts to them.
Okay, I'm going to ask that a question again. What part of this report says that they are arbitrarily rejecting or denying claims?
What do you need to see? Do you need to see that it's not supposed to be the rate that it's at? Do you need
Your
to see
claim-
what the word harm is?
No, not harm. What do you mean? Cars harm people by output. That doesn't mean that you're doing something
Okay, and
morally
denying
wrong or
people medical care harms them, and this is denying more people medical care. The Senate says this is wrong. They say they need to change, and they're not doing criminal charges.
No. It sounds like they didn't even find any wrong behavior. It just sounds like
What is wrong behavior?
something that's unethical or illegal or in violation.
They
of
say
agreements
it
with
is
people.
unethical. They said right there, this is
Can
unethical. this is
harm
not inevitable,
result
and
from
this is
legal
harming.
behavior?
What?
Can harm result from legal behavior?
Yeah, of course.
Okay,
Are you saying that to
that's-
Destiny?
No, the conclusion of the report that you're reading is like, yeah, look, we can do things to rectify
That's
the
just my whole
harm
argument. The status
caused.
quo is that denying people claims that may end up killing them is not viewed as that bad in our current system. That's the reason you guys are making the arguments you're saying.
You're talking. You keep sneaking all this bullshit in, which leads me to think you know that you're full of shit right now. Nobody is saying.
promise you I'm not.
Every single denial is not necessarily bad or unjustified. But you
I
keep
agree.
sneaking in. Also, why do you keep saying ethical? There's no thing on that in that conclusion for that report about ethical. You're adding that word. They didn't say that they're acting unethically.
Okay,
Wait,
they say
wait.
there
Do you
are
think there's-
harms done by the current system. Maybe it's not unethical, but
Hold on.
the point
does
is
that make that system unethical? If a system does harm, right, does that necessarily make the system unethical?
well, it'd be more about the fact that I think what Destiny would want to say is that are the people who are implementing the system actively doing it, knowing that it is doing bad things and not caring? I would say they are, but I think that's what Destiny would want to say.
no,
Is that
but
right?
Wait, just last point.
Wait,
I'm sorry, last point, because you keep bringing up this report, and then you can do this, okay? You keep bringing up this report. What did the report even suggest?
Do better.
Who?
The people that are implementing the system. So United Healthcare, CVS,
Okay.
and there's one other.
So, no, you're wrong. Although the subcommittee's recommendations in this report are targeted at regulators. The whole point is to change the law because this is a heavily regulated insurance industry. That's why I keep getting mad when you guys are coming with car insurance examples. The whole point is health insurance this is why you can't sue these companies because it's so regulated. They don't want to be getting sued for things that they have to do in accordance with rules set by the federal government because of laws passed by Congress.
Why do
That
they
report
have
was
to
targeted by
implement computer
regulators.
systems that deny people? That's not something
Because
they
they're
have
trying to
do.
save
They have
money because
to have
healthcare is
solvency.
expensive. They have to because healthcare is
So if
expensive.
the only way they can operate is by doing this, in the same way that I would say that if you can only afford to have your company by paying people less than minimum wage, then you shouldn't exist, and the government should step in and do it.
Yeah, the government denies people
I
too.
will say,
Okay,
Yeah, they do, but not at the same rates.
You don't even know the rates. You just
they're
said that it's not
having
publicly available information. So why would you even say
Yeah, but
that?
I can at least compare in general to what they're doing in other countries. Sorry, wait.
I do want to make sure more people get in. Eucharist's been trying to get in. Buckaroo's been trying to get in, and Ash wants in. So we're gonna go to in that order: Eucharist, Buckaroo, Ash. Go.
I just don't understand the standard by which you're measuring whether or not they are doing something worthy of giving the Luigi treatment to the CEO, right? So
we can't
you
get
are
there,
reading
'cause
this.
Destiny and I are gonna
Let me
keep
finish.
arguing.
Let me finish. Hold on. You're reading a report that says, "Hey, we could probably do something to minimize the harm done." Right? Fair enough. Right? But it seems like what you're suggesting is they should minimize all harm. Right?
No.
I'm perplexed. Right? Because there's when I buy insurance from a company, I'm entering into a contract. I'm paying them a certain amount of money for a certain amount of time that's going to cover a certain amount of services in the event of certain conditions, right? And they're suggesting, or they're arguing, that when they deny my claim for certain coverage, that there are good reasons for doing that. Now, I think I think we could probably all agree there are circumstances where an insurance company could deny coverage. It would result in harm, but they are doing that within the limits of the contract they've made with the customer. Is that true?
100%. That happens probably more often than an unjust one.
So the report that you're reading does not in any way tell me that they're doing something criminal that I could sue them under, that they could be prosecuted for.
Okay. They're not going to get prosecuted. Okay, I agree.
Wait, they're not doing anything criminal?
Hold on.
I don't think they are. I don't think they're breaking the law.
Two more things. Okay.
Two more things. Go ahead.
What you all were alleging earlier was a strong amount of fraud, actual like I could bring a lawsuit against you, or you could be prosecuted by the federal government for violating federal regulations governing healthcare insurance. Fraud. If you're saying they're not violating statutes, then I don't know what we're talking about anymore, and I don't know how you could possibly justify the thing that this debate is about.
Can something cause harm and be legal? Yes, right?
There's something called the four.
Sorry,
say it one more time.
Well, you brought up. You said, can something be legal and cause harm?
No. I said, could we be working within the insurance system? Could we look at the contract I made with my insurance company? Could they deny my coverage? Could that denial be valid under that contract and cause harm? And we all agree.
Well, that too. But could you also agree that there are things that people do that you would probably disagree with that are not breaking a law?
Yes.
That's what I'm arguing.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
We're not breaking a law that we're killing over.
Right. Not. I just don't even know where to go from here. I feel like we've run into so many dead ends that I just don't even know how you're justifying the thing we're arguing about, right? If you've gotten to the point where you're saying no law was broken, no, there's no action I could bring against this company to resolve the harm that they've done.
Well, then what? Yeah, exactly. There's no action.
This is a policy question,
right? Exactly. And when when does that policy happen? Does it happen a year from now? Does it happen 4 years? What do you tell the person right now that might die because of their denial of coverage if they can't do something to immediately change their situation? That's what I'm asking. That's my whole question, and that is what will convert me to your side.
From a rare kind of cancer, from some chemical dump outside their school, from decades ago. Right? What do I tell them? I tell them, hey, there's laws, and we're processing it, and we're going through the process.
Yeah. So essentially,
you can't just go out and kill them. You can't just go out and kill people because of it.
I don't think you should, but what else do you tell them?
But that's the whole debate. That's the point.
Okay,
Hold on. A part of what I do think is
Buckrow, go ahead.
Part of what I do think is worth criticism is the way the policies are developed in the first place. And I agree, Eucharist. I can hear you saying now that you just want more transparency from insurance agencies, and I absolutely agree. I think insurance agencies should be more transparent. So there's something called the Four Corners rule that's utilized by insurance lawyers specifically, and the idea is that the scope of the coverage is actually completely covered by what's written within the four corners of the paper on which the policy is printed. Now, there have been multiple occasions where different courts have actually castigated these insurance companies specifically because they will use bad faith when interpreting different policies, and yes, I know bad faith is something specific, but they will use bad faith when interpreting these policies, and they will go out of their way to create their own internal definitions of what is and isn't, for example, burglary. So in this specific case, the Iowa Supreme Court actually, this did go to court. They rejected a policy because the definition of burglary within the insurance policy was requiring visible marks of forceful entry on the exterior. And they used that as reinforcement for claim denial because the burglary, of course, couldn't have been an actual burglary if there weren't visible marks on the exterior explicitly. And this is one of the circumstances in which, while I agree this is written in the policy, I think there are issues when it comes to the faith with which the policies are enacted on the claimants. And I think that goes to the exact papers.
I don't think this has anything to do with health insurance. I think this is I don't think that they're going to be using like novel definitions in an insurance policy that isn't understood literally throughout the entire industry.
I staunchly disagree. I think this happens all the time.
Can you give us
exactly
an example?
why there's a bureaucratic process.
What's a single example?
If I can finish my point first?
In a moment. But this goes to the point, right? Like we keep talking in vagaries. What is a specific example in the health industry where they define an insurance company defines something in a
Well,
way
here we go.
that is
Actually, you know
bad
what? Destiny actually referred to this earlier that I thought was really, that's pretty useful now when we're talking about what is and isn't an elective surgery. You know, he's talking about the elective surgery of having your arm bone fixed. But I think the person walking around with a broken arm probably feels differently about whether or not it's elective because there's a specific definition that's being utilized by the insurance company that may or may not be understood by the person when they are signing on to the policy in the first place. Now, I think the average person when they're choosing their specific plan, which again, to be clear, most people cannot choose the insurance agency through which they get insurance. They actually only choose the job that they have, and then those jobs have specific insurance companies from whom they buy insurance packages, and that is what is utilized for their employees. So the option of change your insurance is actually quit your job. Then you can get new insurance. Then you can actually have an issue with the policy that's being offered to you. And even then, you're given what, like 4 or 5 policy plans in the first place. But back to my original point, I think there is something important regarding the specific terminology that's utilized by insurance agencies to deny claims that otherwise, from a good faith or what I would say is a good faith interpretation, what the Utah Supreme Court would say is a good
this is not
good
happening.
faith interpretation.
This is not happening. I don't. This is just an
Do you
imagined
have
scenario.
any evidence? Do you have any
that I can prove that something's not happening? No, I can't prove a negative. I cannot prove that a thing is not happening. But the idea that because somebody doesn't know what an elective surgery means, that they're getting scammed. Like, I'm sorry, if you don't know, like what? Like, let's say I don't speak English.
This is exactly why I wanted to finish my point, which is that it's not just about whether somebody knows what an elective surgery is. It's about the fact that, like I said, insurance companies use explicit definitions that are not known by their claimants to basically lure them into the trap of signing on to a specific policy without understanding.
This doesn't even make sense because you literally said in your.
But if I can finish. If I can read this other quote from the Utah Supreme Court, insureds buy financial protection and peace of mind against gratuitous losses. They pay the requisite premiums and put their faith and trust in their insurers to pay policy benefits properly and fairly when the insured event occurs. Good faith and fair dealing is their expectation. It is the very essence of the insurer and insured relationship. So I think it is actually very important to understand and to ensure that the claimants who are signing up for these policies in the first place have a clear understanding of the policy at hand.
Why would they even have to obfuscate? Wait. Why would they have to?
And I think the training.
You got 30 seconds, right? We can't be held hostage.
Okay. Yeah. No, it's okay.
Okay.
Why would they have to obfuscate their terms? If you just said earlier, people can't even choose their insurance anyway. If they're all getting that from their job, then why would they even have to go through the trouble of trying to obfuscate what people are signing up for? Like, these are just fantasies. Like, nothing that you're quoting even has to do with health insurance. All of these cases, the Utah one, the Iowa one, are all like about car insurance and stuff. It's a totally different industry.
Okay, wait,
Again, to be clear, this is an insurance
fee,
company that has different kinds of insurance that they offer. They can still bounce from car insurance to health insurance because when you have any health claims related to any other form of insurance that you have, it goes to that first form of insurance and then it goes to health insurance. So this is all intertwined. You want this explicit discrimination between these two, but you're wrong. It is not as clear as you imply.
It is very clear. Your car insurance is not your health insurance company. You wouldn't go to your car insurance and say, I got in a car accident. Can you front me some money for my monthly SSRI prescription? Or can you give me something like a car insurance, like forwarding something to health insurance? It's a different thing. Go ahead.
When it comes to the injuries that occur as a result of a car accident, you do go to the car insurance agency. You say, I was hurt from this car accident. I have to pay for these bills because this claimant has caused harm in some way. It goes to the car insurance agency first.
Yeah, as a result of an accident,
Then it goes to the health insurance agency.
But I'm saying that this is a different thing than your ordinary health insurance.
What I'm talking about. This is a part of health insurance. You think it's not a part of health insurance because you don't understand what car and health insurance are. It is not my fault that you don't get what car insurance is and how claims for car insurance injuries go through car insurance first.
If this conversation was supposed to be a debate about how we regulate car and health insurance policies, this would be a completely different conversation, right? If we just wanted to say, hey, in an ideal world, what regulations would be passed for separate issues, health and car insurance, to make them better, that it would be a different conversation. That's part of why I'm agreeing with you on the data transparency issue, right? Where I want to know why and how these insurance companies are making these denials, right? The question that we came in here to debate is when and how these denials justify gunning someone down on the street.
Well,
and
no,
so,
it's
like,
important. You have to know. You have to know if they're justified or not, because that's at the end of the day, that's really the only thing that matters. And nobody knows about anything, how insurance works or whatever, which is why she thinks that the health insurance.
Which is why you don't seem to understand.
With all due respect, you've never done a car insurance claim in your entire life. Car insurance companies aren't even ACA regulated. You have no idea what you're talking about. You're clueless. You're clueless. Do you think car insurance companies are regulated under the ACA the same way the health insurance companies are? No. Do you get a Medicare extension or a Medicare Plus plan from your Allstate or Geico?
Why you are explaining my argument to me about why I see an issue with claimants and their relationship with the insurer in the first place? Because it goes to car insurance agencies first?
Destiny, go ahead.
That are owned by the same company?
Hold on. When I say Destiny, go ahead, I mean Destiny, go ahead. And then when I see you, Soy Pill. We're going to get you in right after, but Destiny has to have a chance uninterrupted to respond. Destiny, go ahead.
Just the fact that a car insurance company might cover some medical expense, when we talk about health insurance companies, we're not talking about car insurance companies. We're talking about health insurance companies where that is the product that they offer, and they're hardcore regulated by the Affordable Care Act. And there's a whole list of regulations and everything that come into play here when we're talking about these companies. And every single data point that you guys were citing earlier, things related to that Senate report and things related to the 90% denials and all these have to do with like Medicare Plus plans or Medicare extension plans or whatever. These don't, which is
insurance plans from insurance agencies, to be
that's health
clear.
insurance. Medicare.
Which is not the plan you're getting from Allstate. That's not when you get a car accident. You don't get a car accident. That's not for car accidents. 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 That's not for car accidents.
I'm not talking about car accidents when I'm citing the Medicare Advantage.
You already said, Destiny, you can go to your car insurer and tell them you have medical bills related to a car accident. That is how, like I have said, you are clearly displaying a lack of understanding with the relationship between health insurance agencies and car insurance agencies. And when you have a car accident that results in the necessity of medical bills being paid, that is going to a car insurance agency first. Now, Soy Pill.
Oh, thanks. First, I want to say Destiny is drinking Soylent right now. That makes him objectively the most correct in this conversation. Destiny, I'm looking at this report. I did not quote every single thing. I didn't know you would fight me so hard on this. Is this enough for you? It says, this majority staff report reveals how Medicare Advantage insurers are intentionally using prior authorization to boost profits by targeting costly yet critical stays in post-acute care facilities. So, a la intentionally using these systems to deny care from people who may or may not rightfully deserve it. I'm sure some of these denials, maybe even the majority of these denials are allowed.
Read that quote again. I was
sure, and this is under the executive summary. And by the way, sorry for all the yelling, because like I can see how this is my first time doing this, and I can see how
I'm having fun.
I'm having fun, but I mean, I want to. I'm seriously trying to approach this in good faith. And so, in the executive summary, it says this majority staff report reveals how Medicare Advantage insurers, aka United Health, CVS, and one other I don't remember, are intentionally using prior authorization to boost profits by targeting costly yet critical stays in post-acute care facilities.
Yes, costly.
Okay.
The issue is that these particular stays are incredibly expensive. So you have two options. Well, you have one option. The only way you have two options. The only way that you can do this, or maybe three, you can either increase premiums to customers, you can decrease the cost of what the people pay out by negotiating with them, which people in America get ass paid at, or you can be more stringent on what you cover. Those are the only three things that you can do.
Yeah, it is a zero-sum game. You're going to have to take money from somewhere else to pay for this care. And what this is saying, I'm trying to establish that they are intentionally denying care, which may or may not result in harm, if not death, to certain people for profit. And whether or not that's because, and you can make this argument, because the government is enforcing these stringent regulations that's forcing them, they say we cannot be operable if we do not do this, that's totally fair. I understand that. I'm just saying that the decisions being made by the higher up people are denying people care that may or may not kill them. That's it.
I don't agree with the death part. Okay, where people are dying because of this, because I don't think that is the case. Okay,
you don't. Okay, so if you need, go ahead.
This has to do with staying in care facilities after surgeries and stuff, right?
Yeah,
But
right. So
there's
if you have a wound, sorry.
There are alternatives to this, right? You don't have to go to a facility afterwards. You can get like in-home treatments instead, or you can visit
Yeah,
a hospital,
long-term.
right? Sure, you can do other things, right? But what this report is saying is that if the person's not being allowed to stay in a post-acute care facility and they get instead opt for that other thing, or they do that other thing, that's counted as like a denial or whatever for this report. Also, this report is only dealing with the time period between 2019 and 2022, which is an incredibly odd period for healthcare coverage, like time periods, which is why even in looking at the conclusion of this report, all of their conclusions go towards the regulations, that maybe we should try to regulate this industry in a little bit of a different way.
Right.
You're saying that people could be dying as a result of this. These are for Medicare Advantage plans. These are things that are on top of your ordinary Medicare already. So if you're advocating for getting rid of stuff like this and just expanding Medicare for all or something like that, these people would literally all be doing worse under that plan because they all already qualify for Medicare anyway. These are just Medicare Advantage plans. So nothing in this report is getting you anywhere near the fact that somebody was engaging in such a harmful behavior they should be killed.
Is there a more than positive chance that someone who is denied post-acute care for, let's say, a wound, where they could get sepsis, that could get infected because they can't afford it, and they can't afford the alternative, would not die? Is that possible?
No. People are not being, no. These types of denials are not like you have sepsis and you're being denied like long-term care. These are like you have an injury that you get, it's maybe some surgery in the hospital, and then you've got to do some like physical rehab or physical therapy, and maybe the doctor...
Some of post-acute care is wounds, like from surgeries, that if you don't treat
Sepsis?
correctly... No, wounds. Wounds could become septic post not treating them, right?
Yes, it could, I guess. If you, well,
Right. So I'm just saying, is it possible that
saying-
there's even one person who's denied that post-acute care, that their wound is not treated correctly and they die?
That's possible, sure. But it's also possible in the other world that too many people get approved for this, and now there's no room for somebody who actually does need to stay in one of those facilities.
No, you're right. Wait,
Just
Destiny's
quick
right.
fact check.
Destiny's right. The reason they're doing this is they're
quick
quoting...
fact checks. Let them finish. Then I get to super chats, and then we'll continue on. Go ahead.
Okay, well, I want to
It's related only to this.
No. Soy, finish.
I want to say Destiny's right. The reason that they're justifying implementing the systems is an over-approval of care for people that don't deserve it. Like, yeah, 100%.
No,
There's
don't
plenty of
deserve
people.
it. There might be a substitution instead. Like you could go home and have the same type of care. Sure.
Sorry. Maybe the word is too loaded, but that don't need this care, right? Like that they're approving people. The system was approving people, and it's like over-approving people. It's losing the company money, and these people didn't need it. I understand that. Yeah, I'm just saying there's a fraction of people. There must be a fraction of people who are denied this care, especially when it goes to as much as 16 times higher than their normal denial rate, who probably need it and may or may not die from it. That's
not
all
as
I'm saying.
policy though. That would be an accident or an oversight or something that's fucked up.
Sure, but like if they don't get the proper treatment because they either can't afford it because the alternative's not there for them. That's all I'm saying.
But you're not dying of sepsis. Sorry, go ahead, Big Papa.
Okay.
I'm just gonna get some. We're gonna get some super chats in there. Then we go to Buckaroo, and then we'll keep going. Deity for $20. Destiny took the L, defending the big businesses and CEOs after the death penalty, and the death penalty nowadays too. Brian Thompson got the death penalty from the American people after enacting the October 7th of healthcare on us, and that's facts. Well, thank you for the $20. $5 from Robert Bates to say ERISA law prevents suing for more than the claim. ERISA prevents putative, emotional, or jury trials. There are no consequences for incorrect denials. $5 from Rabid Wombat. Does Soy think it would have been more ethical for Luigi to grape the CEO instead of murder because it leaves room for a post-grape CEO redemption arc?
Can I answer that?
In a moment, let me get through the rest of these. But yes, keep that in mind. It's an interesting question. Symposium Brain for $20 says Molina recently confirmed that the sex tapes leaked by Destiny.
Jesus Christ.
E-girl were shared by Destiny
Nice.
without her consent.
Good one. Nice. Yes.
If she has no legal recourse.
I've got a whole bunch of super chats for you, Wick. Ready?
Okay. Did you not? Okay, fair enough.
Wick is a stinky butt. I think that's a #1 super chat. He's probably going to
$5.
mention. Sorry.
$5 from Origuni. How would the people on the panel like to be treated if accused of murder? Do you want a trial, or would you prefer Luigi? $5 Smoke D Bandit. The argument that you're stuck with a company because of your job is incorrect. This is America, and you can choose any company. $5 from Very Late and Tired. The one screaming about car insurance is incredibly wrong. She shouldn't be accusing others of ignorance. It's embarrassing. And then finally, $5. Wick, just tuning in, but wondering if Buckaroo has improved on her arguments on this topic since I debated her on the last healthcare panel. Thank you for the money. Okay, with that, Buckaroo.
I'm not
Can I answer
wrong.
the super chat?
There's
Sorry
actually a
about that.
specific. There's actually a specific branch of insurance that's used for this purpose. It's called third-party liability, and if the car insurance company denies the claim, it doesn't go to medical. The only way it goes to medical is if it goes to car insurance first and is approved by car insurance, which is again why I will reiterate there is a complex relationship between all of these kinds of insurance, and the discrimination that you're trying to make, Destiny especially, between health insurance and car insurance is just a fallacy.
Wait, what are you talking
made
about?
in your own mind. Third-party liability.
What do you think third-party liability means?
It's a specific term used, again, with the insurance having its own definitions. It's actually a specific branch of insurance companies that's used to interact between the car insurance and medical insurance. It is used because, first and foremost, they are different kinds of insurance, but if the car insurance denies the claim, it does not go to medical. It has to be approved by the car insurance company to go to medical in the first place.
So one, I'm not even sure if that's true, and two, the very easy counter.
Okay,
to that,
look it up.
The very easy counter
then.
that you understand that you're not required to carry like medical insurance for your own accidents, right? So if I get into a car accident and I don't have,
Are you
car
making
insurance,
an assumption about my claim?
No,
if you're
but
making
like-
an assumption, you can ask me my opinion. I don't understand why you're making an assertion about my claim right now when you can just ask clearly.
Liability, my guess is going to be in, and I know this is
I
probably
don't want
the
to
case.
guess.
Well,
Okay,
you have
if
to,
you
because don't know
won't
anything
even believe my
Okay, sorry, go ahead. Let
statement
me
that
know when you're
I
done
know
talking
is
so I can speak. Go
correct,
ahead.
I don't
Yeah.
want to hear your
You've been wrong about
fucking
almost every
guess
single thing you
about
said.
it.
Third-party liability probably has to do with the fact that you can't make a double.
Probably, based on your assumption.
Link me exactly what you're reading, and I will educate you on how absolutely fucking stupid and
You
clueless you are
can't
about this particular
educate
thing.
me
I
because
absolutely
you're
will.
wrong.
I can't educate you because you don't know
are
anything about what you're
wrong.
talking about. Go ahead, link me. What do
I
you link me exactly what you're reading? Go. Link me. Go ahead. Link me.
Obviously more educated
Link
on
me.
this
Link
than
me.
I
Link me.
am.
Go ahead. Link me.
How long you guys are
Before I
linking each
read
other?
what I'm
I
saying,
didn't know the
before I
opinion.
read what you're saying, my guess is third-party liability tries to avoid two things. One is if you get into an accident where you're clearly like at fault or you've done something bad, or the
don't
car
care
insurance
about the
company has checked it out and you're not liable at all for a particular thing, and they say there's no injury here. You can't go to a health insurance afterwards and try to get a claim that somebody else already validated. Is like, this is absolute bullshit. Number one. Or number two, it's so that you can't do double claims. I can't go to my car insurance and say, hey, I got an injury. Can you give me money for it? Oh, and go to your personal insurance and say, hey, can you give me money for this injury? So you don't do a double claim. That's my guess for what third-party liability has to do. Usually you go down a line of liability so you're not double claiming. This is the same thing with credit cards and other types of liability insurance as well. Link me what you're reading. Link me what you're reading. Link me what you're reading.
Third-party liability insurance.
While you
from
guys
Medicaid.
Wait, Buckaroo.
while you guys
Look,
did that, I wanna give it to
because
Soy.
you guys are talking past each other. Can I
You
just
guys
say?
are just not listening to me.
We're
and
not
I'm
talking
just
past
gonna
each other.
You
We
are
just
listening to
disagree
me, and I'm
because
going to
he
have-
doesn't know what he's talking
Well,
about.
we are going to mute for a moment so I can do this thing, okay? We're going to give it to Soy. It's Soy's turn. You can link Destiny, the appropriate thing, and you guys can have that little back and forth later. But I want to hear Soy's opinion, and he was asking a very interesting question.
Okay, I'll get to the super chat,
rape,
but I want to say
right?
like about you guys. Yeah, I'll get to that. But the thing that you guys are arguing, like Destiny, you were talking about how the examples we brought up were from auto insurance. It's not applicable to health insurance. I agree. Like it's not 1-to-1. What Buckaroo is trying to say is that sometimes the health of people is determined by these companies that do auto insurance. I think that's all she's trying to establish, and that sometimes these bad practices, these examples that we brought up that you said weren't applicable, could be applicable to someone's health. That's it, right? Am I
I
correct?
do think, yes, but I do think he understands that. I think he just blatantly misunderstands the concept of third.
Don't throw more bad faith in it. Just let him talk. Just let don't assume what he's saying.
I don't know why this is not the rule. We're just talking about such a niche thing. It's like talking about, it's like saying we're having
what third-party liability is in the first place.
It's like
he literally made a whole assumption about it. He's
God.
arguing
Insurance
based on that
policies.
blatant
Okay, this is
assumption.
why
You're
people
talking
should
about-
listen
you're
to me, and
talking
I
about
wanted-
medical policies.
You're talking
Look,
about
don't get
Minimum
into it in a second.
liability coverage, and that's it.
Oh, stop. Soy, you were asked a question. You should have just answered my goddamn question.
Okay.
where do
I don't believe
send
in doing direct harm to the CEO because I believe there's, like probably everyone on the opposite side of this debate, that there are lots of things that we can do to make this better. I believe in making the numbers more transparent. I believe we can vote for people that will get single-payer systems. I believe we can put more regulations on hospital costs. So no, I don't think you should go grape the CEO. But the whole point of this argument, and the thing we'll never get to because we keep arguing about whether or not the insurance is even doing this, is once we know that if, assuming the insurance is doing this, and Professor Bunn has tried to address this several times, then is it justifiable for someone who is suffering under that system to do something about it? And I don't know if we'll ever get that. But,
we won't
yeah.
because most people are going to like be very narrow in their agreements there. They're going to be slightly opposed or slightly in favor of. I'm sure that even for Eucharist, as principal as he might say he is, as a fucking conservative professor, mustache having motherfucker, hacker, I'm sure I could find scenarios where you would argue that it's understandable or maybe even justified to take action against some system that is like horrendously failing you. That if I can show you that police officers are intentionally ignoring 911 calls where you're being murdered or whatever, that there are probably times when vigilantism is not only understood, but maybe even like morally acceptable as a way to further some goal with a system that's clearly broken. But most of our moral arguments are going to take place within the framework of a system that we believe is functioning to some extent. So that's why we have to make the argument for whether the system is functioning or not. Vigilantism is a great thing in tribal societies where there's no court. Vigilantism is a horrible thing in societies where you do have court. Also, you can link in the general chat of the Slack, general for Big Papa Buckaroo.
I also put it.
Well,
in
but that's what's so
chat
interesting, Destiny, is because it seems like if I were able to show you that this was happening, and clearly I haven't, and that's fine, I accept that, then would you find it potentially justifiable in the same way that you said, yeah, with the 911 calls, with any of these other things, if for the people specifically who are not able to do and wait around for the regulation to catch up, who are specifically hoping that someone goes out, makes this big message, and causes something to happen in the immediate? Like, well, what do you say to those people? Because that's the whole thing I said at the beginning. I will concede if you can show me there's a better alternative for the people who do not have the time to wait for that sort of regulation to come in and change the laws for a new system to become, especially considering Donald Trump's about to come in, probably cut Medicare, get rid of regulations, maybe even abolish like the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, which helps people who deal with these claims. Like, it does happen. So what do we tell those people? Like, because if you have a better option,
if all these problems are happening and you have to do vigilantism and that's literally the only thing, then of course, definitionally, you're saying by last recourse, then sure, then that's the last recourse. I'm just saying that I don't think these problems are happening like this in the USA, which is why
at all. Ever to one person, 10 people, like any number,
I'm
right?
sure that I can find one example of anything happening anywhere. In the
okay, so what do you tell
States.
that person? What does that person do for recourse?
If you want to go vigilantism, then
if
if it's at the point where you're being like personally vindictively targeted by some insurance exec or a doctor, then fucking go for it. Hey, knock yourself out. But that's not what we're arguing here, and I don't like to even concede that because that's a bad faith argument. Because you're arguing, or maybe not you, no, you were, because you were the one that raised your hand. Is that the random assassination of a terrorist on the street by a healthcare CEO is somehow justified because of the state at large of our healthcare industry in the United States? That is a far cry from I live in Minnezuki, Missouri, and there's a healthcare agent that I fucked their mom when we were in high school, and now he's pushing the denial button on my chemotherapy over and over and over again because he hates me. These are two totally different types of claims, and the latter will never read to justifying the former, in my opinion.
Okay, wonderful. We've got there. So, did you get the link that Buckaroo was trying to send, Destiny?
What do you think this link is proving
they are
me?
in Gen Chat.
What do you think that this is?
The concept of third-party liability and exactly what third-party liability is for.
Be specific. What do you think that this has to do with any of the arguments we made earlier about the ACA or anything else?
It had to do with my arguments about what third-party liability is.
Buckaroo. Was my characterization of your argument with Destiny even remotely in the realm, or am I just completely off base?
Yes. I said yes. I think this is exactly how different.
Okay, so regardless of that at all, like, don't even look
types.
at that link. Destiny, the claim is you saying that the examples we brought of auto insurance were not applicable because they're not health insurance. That's true. We're saying that there are cases where people are denied proper health care by the auto insurance that has been proven from leaked documents to carry out these practices. So does that change anything?
No, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the state of like healthcare coverage in the United States. And a lot of what it's centered around has to do with court cases or Senate committee reports about like Medicare plans or managed chronic care, not things related to automobile accidents.
Well, the McKinsey documents showed that they were purposely
old
denying
people don't get hit by cars?
No, hold on.
Do you think that the majority of old people's healthcare coverages have to do with auto accidents?
No, but I think when you make a definitive claim that automobile accidents don't have any influence on whether
is that what I said? They don't have any influence. I'm saying that
They
the
are
vast majority of what we're
regulated
talking about is not
differently.
related to automobile accidents and claims that you make for an injury in an automobile accident.
Can you show evidence for that claim? Any evidence for that claim that the majority of
The
them
Affordable
are not?
Care Act
Okay,
exists.
we're.
Why are we okaying? He can provide evidence. If I'm supposed to provide evidence, if Soy's supposed to provide
I will
evidence,
allow
he
him
can provide
time
evidence.
to do that if he wishes. But
Sure. So
we do
you're
have
asking me what are the majority medical costs for elderly people? Is that what you're asking me?
Majority of the claims for insurance agencies.
Stop talking about this. It's so irrelevant.
Okay.
Hypertension
and
was the most
specifically-
widely reported condition
and
associated with it. Are they
specifically-
getting hypertension from car accidents? You think is it high blood pressure?
And specifically, what kind of insurance they're going through initially.
I have an actual interesting kind of way. We are running out of time. I want to.
No, wait, hold on, wait. There's more. Wait. You think? Hold on, wait. I just want to get this. I just want to get this into the record. Hold on, Buckaroo. You think that the majority of old people's medical claims are passing through their automobile insurance insurance first?
No, I don't.
What was the point of the statement that you just made?
To get literally any sort of refutable evidence for any claims that you've made during the whole debate.
Wait, or we can just move on to something completely different. Destiny, do you acknowledge that the McKinsey documents for the automobile insurance intentionally said, let us deny as many missed claims as possible? That's the minor impact soft tissue claims, just because we know that the people who are going through the litigation will not be willing to pay the money for a lawyer because the cost of the claim will be less.
Honestly,
is that a thing
at this
that
point,
happened?
I don't even trust it without reading it myself. If you want to link me the actual document, I can read it.
Sure,
but they might have said it would have surprised me if a consultation company, the some insurance company, did say some scumbag shit. That wouldn't surprise me. So I would grant that. Sure, for sure. I'm sure that could happen. Yes.
Okay, and is that tantamount to killing people if they're saying let's us deny these people claim, or not even killing? Let's not go that far. This is causing potentially permanent damage to these people if they do not get the recourse they need within the 3 months period after having that whiplash. This is also known as whiplash. I'll stop saying missed. If they don't get the treatment for that, they will have permanent whiplash injuries from that. Is that a scum thing? Yes. And should that be illegal? And if someone is
non-life-threatening injuries, just things that make you uncomfortable?
Well, sure, but have you ever had back pain that's chronic? It's literally I can't think anymore. That's probably why this guy went out and killed this guy.
First of all, you have absolutely no evidence to support that whatsoever. Number one.
No, it's complete speculation.
Two,
you're right. I've deadlifted wrong before and it hurts like a motherfucker and I've wanted to kill people. That's all I'm saying.
Sure, but that's has nothing to do with him supposedly having chronic pain. Okay, number one.
I'm saying that would radicalize someone. That would cause someone to do and feel immense suffering their whole life.
Didn't we say that this guy wrote a fucking manifesto and he just didn't include his negative experience with healthcare and surgery in the U.S. when he murders a healthcare exec? Wouldn't we expect to see that somewhere?
I'd have to go read it again.
Okay,
maybe.
Number one, that point was so bizarre. Me. I forgot what I was going to say.
It wasn't like a serious, this is trying to change your mind.
I do have a question for your side of things, Soy, and I'll give it to you first. I want to hear everyone else's. Because you specifically, Soy, have brought this up several times. That what do you tell people? What do you tell someone who is suffering?
That's the whole argument I'm trying to grant, right? Yeah.
Right. What do you say? What do you say to those people who have? Do you tell them to just wait until things get better? What do you say to them? Well, the question becomes, if we could show, right, and I think that we can, that them going out and gunning down a CEO or graping a CEO or engaging in vigilante action would make it harder for every other person to get the effective change that others are fighting for in a legal manner. Do you still just kind of sit back?
Of course not. If it's actually making everything worse, which it absolutely might do, I'm about 100% concede that. Yeah. If it does, if it has them cracked down, they don't change anything.
Didn't just not help people, right?
It made things worse. Yeah, sure. And if we see that bear out in the next 2 years, not only will I say that it's I'm already not condoning it, but I would also say, no, you're like I said at the beginning of this, I will concede this is not just you're misinformed. You are causing active harm to society. It shouldn't be done.
Justified. You did raise your hand to say, is this justified?
I think that's what I'm saying. I'm saying that there's a
the reason
potentiality.
why we don't do vigilante, and I'll let you answer after I'm done, please. Right? The reason we don't condone vigilantism, the reason we don't think this is okay, the reason why we don't go down this route is because it makes things harder to do it in the correct way. It makes it less likely that actual change will happen that won't lead to mass amounts of blood in the streets. If extrajudicial killings are successful and it does lead to change, then that puts a lot of people on the menu and they can say, look,
that's how we used to run society.
Let's do it a lot more. And I think that leads to more deaths than the insurance companies are.
Right, and I don't advocate for that. That is how we used to run societies before we had democracies. That was the compromise, saying hey, we'll stop going killing our kings, we'll stop killing our union boss, we'll stop killing our boss who's screwing us over. I don't think we should go back to that. I don't think that would be good, and I don't think that this is the way that we need to have it happen. But I am saying that there are justifiable ways that this could bear out in these people who are suffering and have no recourse. The whole point of my argument is that what are these people else supposed to do? What could they possibly? I almost put on my video. What if they?
Not that.
Sure. And I was like, what if they, like Destiny brought up the self-immolation and how that like got not talked about a month later. And it could be the exact same case here where it hasn't even been a month yet. We're not going to be talking about this guy 3 months
But
from
you're
now. Who
talking
knows?
about killing people for lack of like positive resources. Like, bro, are we like, we're going to be killing store owners for not giving us food. We can kill a realtor for not giving us a house. If we're homeless, we could kill,
Again, I'm not
everybody up and down
justifying
the
it. I'm
healthcare-
saying, what do you tell the people that are suffering?
Tough shit. I mean, like, there's some degree of suffering. You're saying that any amount of
guess.
suffering is. You're saying that any amount of suffering.
No, I mean
is,
the people that are going through chronic pain and death, like from denial, which you don't think is happening, but just assume it is, just for that specific point.
If you assume away the hard part, then I guess you like literally. I guess almost everything's on the table. If you're gonna die, sure, but
Okay. But I guess, but if it's not happening, then it doesn't matter. But yeah, okay. That's kind of my point. I'm like, what else are you supposed to tell them? That's like, hey, I'm going to die in a month because I'm being denied care. What the f am I supposed to do? This guy's getting away with literally murdering me. Like, what do you tell that person?
Yeah, but that's
I
this
guess it's
type of
tough
care,
shit.
like death is that's not even legal to deny. Even the hospital can't deny if that's like a thing that you're facing. If you're like going to die in a month, like even the hospital has to treat you at that point.
Well, I guess that's also supplanting the idea. That's probably not the right word, but like a lot of people, like we said, like might be afraid to even go to the doctor because of fear of going bankrupt. A lot of people we don't even know that they're denied care. They just get the, like, hey, we rejected your claim. And then they don't pursue anything further because they don't know that they're owed more. And then they don't go further from that because they don't want to pay out more. Like but again, that's not, I don't have data to back that up. The data doesn't exist. So I
I
want
don't
to
even
So
think
all
there's,
these
like,
are information problems that are exacerbated by propaganda that suggests that if you go through these things, you're going to go bankrupt, right? So what we could do to solve those is to solve the information problem by more widely distributing accurate facts about the healthcare system rather
that'd
than
be great.
propagandizing people about the healthcare
How
system,
responsible
right?
are the people spreading that misinformation? So they're making it an exasperating, you know the word I'm talking about, right? They're blowing up and blowing out of proportion this idea that it's so hard to get an ambulance, or it's going to cost you, it's going to make you go bankrupt. And so because of all this misinformation out there, people choose not to engage in these services. It leads to worse health conditions that eventually affects their quality of life and they die. Are the people spreading that misinformation on the list?
Characterizing it
directly
as
led to harm and
misinformation
death.
is incorrect because it's an accumulation of different anecdotes that people are experiencing, and that goes to the corrosion of social trust that we actually penalize financially, as described earlier. They are further removed. They're less proximate to the evil and the corrosive nature of their misinformation than the people who are causing it to begin with, by not publishing their numbers, not making them accessible, publishing them in a way that makes them a little bit more difficult to read, we could say, or making them unclear. What is a closed case versus an appealed case versus a denied case versus settled case? Like if we don't have consistent standards for these, we should be looking at the health insurance companies instead.
Okay. Gang,
But I got to jump in because I've been, waiter, my hand is getting cold.
I know we'll get to you and we'll give you a word here, but I'm just saying we're going to go to Ash and then we are going to go to closing statements. I want to respect everyone's time. If you guys want to call in and stay after, by all means, right? But I do want to allow an escape to those who wish to do so. So Ash, you've had your hand up. Give us your point. Then we'll
Yeah, I just want to go over. I'm excited about the upcoming destruction of the Affordable Care Act. I think it's been horrific to the American healthcare industry by incentivizing healthcare companies to stop driving down costs, which they used to devote a fair amount of their time to, was driving down costs. But if they drive down the cost of a claim by negotiating with a healthcare provider, then that decreases, that eats up administrative costs, but also means that their ratio gets thrown off in a different direction, so that now their payouts look lower, and they've just eaten up a bunch of administrative costs. So now they have to make up for that in other ways that might not be appropriate. So their incentives right now are to offer settlements, are to delay, deny, and defend up until the end of the year. And then if they are a little bit over, they can offer some rebates. That's all I'm saying is like, hey, these people have the means, they have the motive, and they have the opportunity. I don't necessarily know if they're actually doing it, but I have a lot of claims that they're actually doing it. And I see a healthcare industry that's protected from exposing themselves to any potential wrongdoing, which is why, as I said at the beginning, it's leverage. Hey, if you guys are doing wrong, then the first person to defect is, I think, going to have some kind of protection. If you guys are not doing wrong, then you have even more incentive to publish your numbers in a transparent accurate and clear way so that people understand exactly how their claims are getting denied, because they're different all over the place. Kaiser has a stupidly low appealed claims rate. I think it's like 0.2% or something like that. But Kaiser itself has like a very vertically integrated health insurance claim. You're mostly interacting within your own network, and it seems like a very solid system from the inside. So I have no reason to suspect Kaiser of wrongdoing just looking from the outside in at that one statistic,
Yeah, but this has to do with like, what is your engagement with the healthcare system? Like the fact that you just said that it seems great because of that. Have you ever known somebody who needs to pursue either a specialist or go to a doctor that can prescribe something or recommend you something who's out of network? Because some companies, like with Kaiser, that could be a fucking nightmare. So even though they have a low denial rate, that's not necessarily a good thing. It could be a bad thing. Just none of these things in a vacuum.
That's why I made the point that we need to be as transparent as possible.
Sure, and if you want to demand like maximal transparency.
To answer your question that you asked me just a moment ago, my father died of melanoma, skin cancer. My mother has had the mini Whipple surgery. She had basically a benign tumor that was, a precancerous tumor on her pancreas that had also spread to, I believe her gallbladder was removed, or a piece of her gallbladder. I don't remember the exact distinction between the Whipple surgery and the mini Whipple. That led to some medical malpractice where a mesh was left inside of her body and went undetected for several years afterwards and caused her quite a few problems. She actually went into sepsis several different times. I'm currently waiting on a specialist for a GI problem because my grandfather died of colon cancer. My mother had cancer. My father died of cancer. So I'm waiting on that specialist now. I interact with it. I'm a young person, and these kinds of problems engender fear that I try to discourage in my friends. But again, it's socially corrosive. So we want to solve that problem as quickly as possible. And if we encourage people who are doing wrong to say, hey, defect ASAP and we will bring you into the fold of our protection, then that's great. If they're not doing any wrong, then they should admit it.
How liable do you hold like hospitals or healthcare providers versus insurance companies?
Very, very. This is where I just differ from the rest of the panel. Do you remember the anesthesia? I wish we had gotten to this
I know
earlier,
the anesthesia thing, yes.
Anesthesia
yeah, I'm aware of the craziness of all of that, yeah.
Yeah, that was, okay, it was completely justified on the part of the insurance companies to start going after these anesthesia providers because they're manufactured in these 500 milligram vials, I believe, which is something like 10 doses, perhaps, conservative estimate. But you have to throw away the entire dose, I believe, partially because of hospital policy, but also because of
Yeah, there's a lot of there's a lot of dumb shit with that. I guess one of the things when we talk about like increased transparency, sometimes governments will provide a little bit more protection towards companies that are complying in heavily regulated environments. It's why I believe I don't think it was just the vaccines. I think that for FDA regulated drugs, assuming you follow the regulatory process and everything well, if something pops up and you like were following the process all the time, it's very hard to hold these companies liable because they're following such a regulated process. And the argument would be, well, if something happens that's bad, then the government should regulate it differently. If we're arguing that we need way more transparency so that the coverage rates go up massively or something like that, then one of two things will happen. One, either the cost for these premiums is going to skyrocket because there's way more cost in the system now for people covering everything. Or two, healthcare providers are just going to say, fuck it, I just don't take these types of like Medicare plans because the government pay rates for these things are fucking dog shit. And a lot of these people only accept people like Medicare or Medicaid patients because they have people with a private insurance where the insurance companies compensate the healthcare providers way more. Which again, to be clear, I'm not arguing one way or another in favor of insurance or not in favor of insurance or whatever. I'm just saying that I feel like Americans have this bad thought sometimes that everything is fucked and that we just do one thing, we can fix everything. But you have to understand that the implementation of things you're asking for are going to cause necessarily some decrease somewhere in the system, whether it's by speed or choice or access to certain types of like drugs or procedures, that like something has to give somewhere. We can't just have everything at less cost. And
I'll give you an example right now. One of the regulations that goes into not reusing a vial such that if you use one dose of ketamine, we have to throw out the other 9 is an OSHA regulation because basically saying that like, hey, we can't reuse these saline bags. We can't reuse anything that we inject intravenously, I believe, anything that we inject even with a hypodermic needle. There's a possibility that some bacteria could get on it and go to somebody else. So we have to throw it out. I would be happy with an America where you could opt in to slightly that extra 1% risk to cut your healthcare costs by 90% or whatever it would happen to be, right? That would be a beautiful America to live in. We can't live in that America because the government says no.
Okay.
And the government says no to a lot of different places, but yes, it would require systemic change. I think we have a little bit more leverage on the conversation now because people who lobby regularly to make it worse are now afraid for their lives,
Okay.
even when they're doing okay.
Here's the order of operations, gang. It's been a robust discussion, a lot of yelling, a lot of screaming, but some productivity in there, and I appreciate that. I'm going to give each of these lovely individuals, and thank you all for coming, closing thoughts, closing statements, tell people where they can find you. I have links to all of their stuff in my YouTube description. They have provided me links. I have pasted them for there, so check them out. They have spent their Sunday evening with me, so give them a follow if you can. But yeah, we'll stay for as long as you guys want afterwards for the after show. Dev's wanting in. He's got some issues with you, Soy Pal, and some others. But yeah, you guys can stay if you like. If you need to go, that's fine. Let's start with you, Chris, and we'll end with Destiny. You, Chris, give us your closing thoughts. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I think it's important to note. We sometimes forget this, but we live in an era of relative peace in the United States from political violence. So, for example, in the 1970s, according to FBI statistics, there was an 18-month period where we averaged 5 political bombings a day in the United States. At the turn of the century, late 1800s, early 1900s, you had labor disputes that led to dozens of people dying in dust-ups between striking laborers and the enforcement workers that were brought in to fight with them. Right, so we are blessed, I think, in a lot of ways, and we should oppose things that agitate for a world where things like the Luigi incident become the new normal, especially when we have avenues to resolve problems that we might think exist. So again, I would recommend to all of you, there's a great ProPublica series on healthcare insurance claim denials. You can learn some of the data that we have about it. You can learn some of the policies that are affecting it, and you can argue for avenues that will defeat it. I think if the things that people who are pro Luigi are alleging are true, that Thompson and UHC are guilty of fraud and can be sued and potentially prosecuted on that basis. And so you should do that instead of gunning down people in the streets. I did not hear any satisfying answers tonight on where this principle stops, which sorts of C-level executives can or can't be shot, or people below them can or can't be shot. And so I see no reason to come away from this agreeing more with the people who are more in favor of Luigi than I am. Yeah. I don't really stream. I blog sometimes on Substack. It's everythingwasbeautiful.substack.com. If you want to subscribe, it's free.
Check them out, gang. Thank you for being here. Really appreciate you. Soy Pill, what do you got?
Yeah, I mean this unironically. I do want to apologize to the audience, like if I haven't properly established, because it sounds like a lot of people don't properly think that what I believe is happening with the health insurance industry or the audio insurance industry or any insurance industry is happening to a point that is bad. You're unmuted.
I'm sorry. I'm yelling to my cat. I'm sorry.
But like genuinely, I mean, it seems that I established that if all those things were happening, there could be, it's all you can really say to the people that are suffering from it is tough shit. I don't think that's an acceptable answer. That doesn't mean I think they should go out and kill people, but it's kind of a no-win situation for those people, and it's hard for me to say that they don't they're not rightfully justified in their own thinking to say, well, if I can't have any other recourse, I'm going to go out and do something. But clearly I haven't established that. Now, it sounds to me like Destiny said he would agree. Were that all true to a point, which makes me just want to try to prove it better and more. And I hope that at some point you'll let me speak and try to present a better argument to you, because after reading this book, I do want to go out in the street and protests within the confines of the law. Wick, thank you for putting it together. Thanks everyone for being here. Professor, sorry we didn't get to the really moral argument because we got stuck on the other stuff. And I could pretend like I'm above this, but Destiny, I really like your stuff. I've been watching you for 7 years. It's an honor to be here. Thank you so much. You're always raising the bar. I mean, I've heard that your leaked tapes weren't that good, but you just glazed the shit out of Brian Thompson. So clearly you're always doing better. So thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. His links are in the YouTube description. Check them out. Ash, go ahead. You're muted. We can't hear you.
I feel like I emptied my own tank a little while ago. Sorry. So again, my argument differs from my colleagues here a little bit. Again, I think that we have a reasonable suspicion that something could be going wrong from people who have the means, motive, and opportunity. And again, I focus particularly heavily on the motive. And I think more importantly, their incentives to do right by their customers have actually been diminished by the Affordable Care Act. So again, I think that this provides us with some leverage. I don't think that it should continue. I hope it stops as soon as possible on both sides to the degree that it's actually happening. But again, I'm not going to weep or cry if somebody's suspected of wrongdoing and they obfuscate and lobby to obfuscate their potential wrongdoing in the face of everything else. Then I'm just not that upset about it. But I will be around for questions afterwards if Wick will have me. And also, I have a link in the chat. If you think I'm wrong about this, I have a Kickstarter coming up that was prototyped yesterday for a game, Papers, Please style game. We'll be calling it Affordable Care, in which you'll play a claims adjuster who is trying to avoid getting shot while also making a profit in a pre-ACA and a post-ACA world. And I will do my best to model that appropriately and, respectfully of everybody's wishes. If you have a nasty healthcare story, please DM me with it if you'd like to be featured.
Gang, check
You
them
can fill
out.
out the form to be notified in the comments.
Links in the comments, gang. Buckaroo, go ahead.
As I explained before, I think there are nuances within healthcare and how insurance companies use wrongful or outright fraudulent claim denials as a means of generating profit. Clearly expressed in this debate, a lot of people have massive misunderstandings or outright misinformation about the insurance industry. This results in an increased likelihood of bad faith interpretations of policies utilized by companies, as explained in the McKinsey & Company files released by Allstate. Only after using those same outlined tactics, delay, deny, defend, to avoid responsibility for the few cases their claimants can afford to take to court. When this game, as they refer to it, is played with the peace of mind and health of an individual, it results in some pretty unhappy people. The ethics and advocacy for transparency, universal health care, vigilante justice aside, it's simple as fuck around and find out.
Okay, their links are in my description. Thanks for being here. Last but certainly not least, Destiny, what are your thoughts?
I think I agree mostly with the pro Luigi people. I've had a lot of trouble recently with my Allstate insurance because they are not covering my Vyvanse for some reason. I keep going to the pharmacy telling them that Allstate is supposed to cover it, and they say, no, sorry, that's fucking car insurance. And then I keep screaming third-party liability at them over and over again. But for some reason, they're not buying drugs from me. I don't really know why. But other than that, I think that it's very funny to me that people who are literally against the death penalty, they're against the death penalty for people convicted of crimes beyond a reasonable doubt in front of a jury of their peers because they're so worried that some innocent people, and they are convicted and then sentenced to death, are somehow okay with vigilantism when it relates to a system that's so complicated that few people, even those working in healthcare, barely understand. It's funny that if you go into the far ends of weird, evolutionary biology, theoretical physics, all these crazy, whatever, hard science things, even those people seem like they have a better handle than when you talk about healthcare, because it is an incredibly complicated system. And even when you talk to people that are really deep into the insurance stuff, into the providing stuff, even those people are like, why is it so expensive in the US? It's really fucking hard to say because there's 50 million variables that are pushing against 50 million other variables at literally every single point in time. And it's hard to quantify literally anything. And a lot of these things are sensitive to different changes and who the fuck knows what's actually going on. So the idea that we're somehow comfortable enough to say that yeah, we can probably kill somebody, here, but we're not okay to do the death penalty because there might be somebody who's convicted beyond a reasonable doubt in a court is wholly and completely and totally inconsistent to me. It's stupid. And at the end of the day, and I'll stake my reputation on money on this, nothing is changing from the health insurance industry. Nothing is changing from healthcare at the end of this because some fucking rich white loser fuck decided to off some health insurance exec because he wanted attention or because he was mentally ill or because he spent too much time on Twitter.
Too much time on Twitter has been the death of us all. Okay, well, thanks for being here, gang. If you've enjoyed this content, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. We do shows like this as much as we possibly can. Again, if you guys want to stay for some callers, that's cool. If you need to go, I understand.
I just also really quick want to say thank you to Wick and everybody else who participated.
Absolutely. No,
I want to say Wick is the
out.
worst. And no,
it's true.
Well, like Destiny's donators said, Wick is a stinky butt. Okay.
Yeah, 100%.
It wasn't
very interesting debating politics with Philip because normally we're arguing about much more important things like Dungeons
D&D.
and Dragons. Yeah.
You have the complete wrong.
I want to give some space to some of the new people on here to get some of their thoughts. Short Fat Otaku, then Friendly. Short Fat Otaku, give us what you thought. You were screaming in my chat, and now's your chance.
A little bit, yes, a little bit. There was one avenue that you guys kind of went down, but then kind of stopped going down it. I'm just a bit curious about it. I forget who it was, but someone brought up the banality of evil.
That was Professor.
Oh, okay. Yes.
Although
the idea there,
he's quoting my essay, sorry. So both of us really, yeah, go on.
right. So the idea there is that responsibility is abstracted away from individuals because you have people who are not intentionally evil, but they're still doing evil actions. And that's why you have the example of the Nazi prison guard or the guy who's just filing paperwork, right? So the question I have is how far does that principle extend, right? Like, do you want to shoot people who peddle vices because vices destroy people's lives, right?
Yeah, no, this is a good question. So I said this in my video. Well, sorry, I'm assuming you're asking me because I was one of the ones who brought it up.
I'm asking everyone, basically, yeah.
Sure, sorry, I'm already going. So what I said in my video. So my video was actually saying I don't think it's good that we are killing people. I think that reformative justice is preferred. That's why I don't believe in the death penalty, like Destiny brought up. I think that these people can probably be shown the evil of their actions potentially if they saw like the harm they're causing directly, even though they know it's happening. It's very, very, very nebulous. It's disassociated. They're not seeing the direct actions, and I think that would be a better way to try to reform people like this. The difference in the banality of evil is that Adolf Eichmann, the guy who was orchestrating the trains to Auschwitz and all that, went to visit the camps. He saw Jews being murdered, and he's quoted as saying, "I will go into my grave smiling because I have 5 million Jews' deaths on my hands." So like he had no remorse, and I think that when they executed him in Israel or whatever, that's probably potentially, yeah, I'd say that's probably justified. Like he literally just completely unreformable, did not feel sorry at all. But yeah, I don't think that Brian Thompson is unreformable. Well, he is now, but in concept. So.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, I mean, when it comes to him, like knowing what's going on and then saying, "Oh, I don't care." But I mean, the example of the banality of evil is usually brought up is of the person who doesn't know what's going on or who is willfully blind to it, where like he could know but he decides not to look at it. So, like, let's say you have the CEO of a company that sells cigarettes, right? And cigarettes kills people like crazy. Do you want to shoot him? Like
Do I want to? I mean,
well, would it be okay if you did in the same way that it's like
no, not. I don't want to live in
here.
a world where that's the way we solve things, but at the same time, like that's. I guess it's also a completely different argument because cigarettes, yeah, they're addictive. Yeah, you could argue same with gambling. Like people are coerced into this, but people have to make that initial jump to starting that, and it's a lot harder to place the blame versus someone like directly denying you care or something. Which again, even then, I don't necessarily agree with shooting him. So, yeah.
Okay, yeah, fair enough.
No.
Because then you can also extend it to like, well, what about voting, right? Because if we're gonna go down the road of even abstracted responsibility should have direct consequences. Like, well, if you vote for the wrong guy and that guy does something terrible, should you get shot for that? Like, I think no.
Oh, no.
No,
But I was
this
going
is
to say,
I think ridiculous, and it's something I didn't get to disagree with my colleagues here earlier on. Is responsibility. So responsibility has like these two different aspects where it's like, all right, what did you do? And then what was the context in which you did it? Obviously, I'm not saying anything special there. If the incentives were set up for you to do something harmful to somebody else, I'm going to look at your proxy. I'm going to look at your amount of agency. I'm going to try to put a price on your agency and how much authority you had over that situation and what you could have done theoretically to stop it and change the outcome in a meaningful way. And in cases like that, I am going to look further up the chain because as you go up the chain, generally speaking, that involves people, that's going to involve people who have more power.
On that chain.
What's up?
You're like, okay, I understand.
Wait,
The
I think
lowest rung on the-
I think real quick, just echoing what Ash said, this is, whether we know it or not, intuitively, this is what we all feel, and it is true to a large extent. When you think about evil and when you think about good, okay, when you think about morality, one of the big challenges to people that believe in determinism and why we have things like compatibilism is because to assign people or to ascribe malice or evil to some extent to somebody's actions, we have to first give them some level of agency. There's a reason why we don't say that a tree that falls on us acted evilly. It's because the tree couldn't have done anything differently, right? It's why a socialist will say there's no ethical consumption under capitalism, is because the idea might be that a person is so enslaved to the system that it's not like they could do anything regardless. So when you're going after people that are on these these rungs of the ladder that are so far low, it's like hard to say like, well, would the expectation ordinarily be for a human to suicide themselves to fight against some system? And then also, like, shouldn't we have some trust that the system we're operating in resembles the laws of society, such that if we operate within the bounds of those laws, we're ensured like some level of protection by the state? Like, even if they might be doing things that are somewhat questionable, because I mean, what are we as citizens of a state with some negative freedoms guaranteed to us, if not the freedom from, you know, like harm against our person, you know, like, and we believe in this so strongly that even if we do decide that something is illegal, you can't make something illegal and then retroactively prosecute people for it. Let's say we decide tomorrow that veganism is the law of the land. You can't prosecute people who had broken a law that was just made illegal. That's how strongly we feel about this principle. So the idea that you might be acting fully within the bounds of society, and some people in society might reasonably disagree about the amount of harm you're causing, which is fair, they can have that disagreement, but part of the agreement of living in a society with a functioning judicial system is the idea that, like, even though some people disagree, we're going to all play by these rules. And vigilantism is basically a statement saying society has failed to such an egregious extent that I have to take the law into my own hands. And like in a failed state, like, I can understand it, but I don't think we're anywhere near that point yet.
Yeah, there's
I
something
said
I wanted
earlier,
to
it's a
bring up.
referendum on, you know. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah,
Phil.
I want to hear what Eucharist says, and you can go.
Yeah, I need to pop off. Thank you for having me, Wick.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
there was something I was going to bring up earlier. It didn't really become relevant. But there's a really great article at the Daily News, which is like a philosophy website. A philosopher wrote this article on this topic specifically, and he concedes most of the arguments that the pro-Luigi people are making. His three claims that he concedes are: UHC systematically defrauded its policyholders by refusing to cover contractually obligated medically necessary treatments. Failing to prevent harms resulting from refusing to cover medically necessary treatments is as or almost as wrong as causing those harms. And Brian Thompson, the CEO, specifically exacerbated those harms in his tenure as the CEO. He concedes all of those, and he still makes the moral case that even if you concede those, that you should not kill this guy because of exactly what Destiny was saying. He makes a sort of Lockean social contract kind of argument that, like, what we do in a state is we've ceded some of our rights to avenge ourselves to an institutional body that rectifies these disputes. If these things are true, he's committed crimes, or maybe he's civilly liable for things, and we should prosecute him through the ordinary channels. But the claim that he makes that I think is the most salient, or the most punchy, I guess, is that I personally do not trust armed Americans acting privately to determine which CEOs should be killed and which should be allowed to live, especially in a social environment where misinformation is rampant. It's not hard to imagine a future in which private citizens begin assassinating academics they view as a danger or a harm to society. I think he makes a very powerful case throughout
or podcasters or all sorts of
right,
different
exactly.
industries,
So I think he makes a very good case here. I'll share it in the group chat and in the general chat and stuff in Wick's channel, but I think it's good article, and I think it goes to Destiny's point. And so, yeah, that's basically my position as well.
Sure. Thanks for being here, buddy.
Yep. Thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it.
Yep, I love you guys too. I
Thanks
gotta
for
take
coming.
out, so be careful. I love you. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for hanging out.
Jesus. I feel like this is another one of those hot button topics where like 90% of the disagreement, or 99% just stems from like the fundamental understanding of the thing itself. But whatever.